The manila envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a bomb waiting to explode. I might never have noticed it if I hadn't been looking for Noah's car insurance papers that morning. But there it was, partially hidden beneath a stack of mail, with confidential DNA results stamped across the front in bold red letters. My heart stopped when I saw my daughter's name, Lily Reynolds, typed neatly on the label. I didn't order a DNA test. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Noah never mentioned ordering one either, so who would have tested our 6-month-old daughter without our knowledge? As I slid my finger under the sealed flap, I had no idea that what I was about to discover would shatter the fragile peace I'd built with my mother-in-law and force our entire family to confront a truth that had been buried for decades. I met Noah Reynolds during my first year teaching at Oakwood Elementary. He'd come to fix a persistent leak in the classroom ceiling, and I was immediately drawn to his quiet confidence and the gentle way he spoke to the children who clustered around. Him, curious about his tools. Within 6 months, we were engaged, and by the following summer, we were married in a small ceremony at the Oakwood Community Center. The only tension that day came from my new mother-in-law, Barbara Mitchell, whose tight smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. "Don't take it personally," Noah had assured me after catching Barbara's grimace during our first dance. She was close to Noah's college girlfriend, Vanessa. "It's not about you." But it felt personal. From the moment Noah introduced us, Barbara had regarded me with barely disguised suspicion. She asked probing questions about my family. "And where exactly did you say your parents were from, dear?" Made comments about my teaching salary. It's so noble to work for passion rather than money, and frequently reminisced about Vanessa's accomplishments in Barbara's presence. "She's finishing her surgical residency this year, you know." Despite this, I tried. God knows I tried. I brought homemade dishes to Sunday dinners, remembered birthdays with thoughtful gifts, and listened attentively to Barbara's endless stories about Noah's childhood. Thomas, my father-in-law, was kind enough but seemed content to let Barbara dominate any interaction. He'd give me apologetic smiles across the dinner table when she became particularly cutting, but never intervened. When I became pregnant with Lily, I'd hoped motherhood might bridge the gap between us. Instead, it deepened it. "Are you sure you should be eating that?" Barbara would ask, eyeing my prenatal vitamin shake. In my day, we just ate well-balanced meals. Or, "Noah had colic for 3 months. Mitchell babies always do. I hope you're prepared for sleepless nights." The comments escalated after Lily's birth. Barbara appeared at our apartment unannounced almost daily, often when Noah was
didn't speak أنني أكيد سأستعين أبو
She critiqued everything. How I held my daughter, the temperature of her bottles, the detergent I used for her clothes. Nothing was right, nothing was enough. "Babies need routine," she informed me, rearranging Lily's nursery while I sat nursing, in the rocking chair, too tired to protest. Noah thrived on the schedule I created. What hurt most was how she examined Lily, turning her this way and that as if searching for something. "She doesn't look like Noah did," Barbara remarked one afternoon, studying Lily's face. "Mitchell babies usually have that strong chin. And her eyes, they're so dark. Both Noah and Vanessa have blue eyes, you know. Genetics are fascinating, aren't they?" The implication hung in the air between us, unspoken but unmistakable. Noah dismissed my concerns when I finally broke down and told him how I felt. "Mom's just being mom," he said, kissing the top of my head. "She did the same thing with my cousin's kids. She thinks being a grandmother makes her an expert on everything." But it wasn't just grandmother enthusiasm. There was something calculating. In Barbara's scrutiny, something that made me hold Lily closer whenever she was around. The DNA test envelope confirmed my worst fears. I called Rachel immediately. "She had my baby tested," I said when she answered, my voice cracking. "Without permission, behind my back." "Who did?" Rachel asked, though I could tell she already knew. "Barbara, there's a DNA test envelope here with Lily's name on it." "Open it," Rachel urged. My hands trembled as I removed the papers. Charts. Graphs and scientific terminology swam before my eyes, but one section stood out in bold: probability of paternity. 99.9997%. "Noah is her father," I whispered, tears of rage and relief mingling. "Of course he is." "That witch," Rachel hissed. "Emma, you have to tell Noah." But could I? Noah adored his mother despite her flaws. He'd spent his life trying to please her, working in the family construction business instead of pursuing architecture as he'd wanted, buying a house in Oakwood when we'd dreamed of moving to the coast. Would he believe me? Or would Barbara twist this too, claim I was overreacting, being hormonal, trying to drive a wedge between mother and son? "I need to think," I told Rachel. "I can't just accuse her without proof." "The envelope is proof. It doesn't have her name on it. She could deny ordering it." We spoke for another hour, weighing options, making plans. By the time we hung up, I'd decided to confront Barbara directly. Alone. Without Noah. I needed to understand why she'd done this before blowing up my marriage. I tucked the results back into the envelope and hid it in my desk drawer. Then I texted Barbara, "Can we meet tomorrow? Just us. There's something important we need to discuss." Her reply came instantly. "Of course, dear. Is everything all right with Lily?" The concern would have seemed genuine to anyone else. But now I knew better. "Everything's fine," I wrote back. "Coffee corner at 10? Perfect. See you then." I spent the night lying awake beside Noah, studying his profile in the darkness. The strong jawline Barbara was so proud of. The cleft in his chin that sometimes appeared in certain light. Features I'd fallen in love with, now scrutinized through the lens of betrayal. Did he know what his mother had done? Was he part of this? I couldn't believe it, wouldn't believe it. Noah was many things, sometimes too eager to please his family, occasionally oblivious to his mother's manipulations, but he was honest. He would never have agreed to test our daughter behind my back. The next morning, after Noah left for work, and I'd dropped Lily at daycare, I arrived at the coffee corner 20 minutes early, the envelope tucked securely in my bag. I chose a table in the back, away from the windows, and ordered a black coffee I couldn't drink. My stomach was in knots. Barbara arrived precisely at 10, immaculately dressed in a pale blue blouse and white pants, her silver hair styled in its usual perfect bob. She air-kissed my cheek before sitting down across from me. "You look tired, Emma," she said, signaling the waitress. "A chamomile tea, please. It's excellent for stress, dear," she added, turning back to me. "Now, what's this important matter?" I placed the envelope on the table between us. Barbara's composure slipped for just a moment, a quick widening of the eyes, a slight paling of her complexion, before she recovered. "What's this?" she asked, her voice steady. "I think you know exactly what it is," I replied, fighting to keep my own voice from shaking. "What I don't know is why. Why would you test my daughter without my permission?" Barbara's fingers twitched on the table. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't lie to me." I pushed the envelope closer to her. DNA results. For Lily. Tests you ordered. Tests that confirm what you should have already known, that Noah is her father. I never... Stop. My voice came out sharper than I intended, causing a few nearby patrons to glance our way. I lowered my tone. "I'm not here to make a scene, Barbara. I just want to understand why you would do something so invasive, so hurtful. Barbara stared at me for a long moment before reaching for her purse. She extracted a tissue and dabbed at the corner of her eye, though I saw no tears. You don't understand what it's like, she said finally. To watch your son throw away a promising future with a suitable partner for someone. She stopped herself. For someone like me? I finished for her. Someone not good enough? I didn't say that. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You didn't have to. You've made it clear from day one that you think Noah could do better. But this, I tapped the envelope. This crosses every line. This is my child. Barbara's jaw tightened. I had concerns. Based on what? The fact that Lily has dark eyes? That she doesn't have the almighty Mitchell chin? Or is it simply that she came from me, and that automatically makes her suspicious? You don't understand family legacy, Barbara replied, her voice cooling. The Mitchells have certain expectations, certain obligations. Noah was raised to uphold those. And marrying me violated those expectations? Frankly, yes. Barbara's mask of politeness slipped. We know nothing about your family. Your parents are dead. You have no siblings. Convenient, isn't it? No one to verify your background. The cruelty of her words stole my breath. My parents had died in a car accident when I was 19. My only brother had drowned years earlier. These weren't secrets. Noah knew everything about my past. To have Barbara weaponize my losses this way made me physically ill. So you tested my daughter because you think I'm what? A gold digger? A liar? I needed to be sure she was a Mitchell. Well, now you have your answer, I said, pushing my chair back. Lily is Noah's daughter. My daughter. And after this, I'm not sure I want her anywhere near you. Barbara's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. You wouldn't dare keep my granddaughter from me. Watch me. I pulled free of her grasp. You violated our privacy. You went behind our backs. You violated medical ethics. Laws, for God's sake. How did you even get her DNA? A flicker of something, guilt, perhaps, crossed Barbara's face. The pacifier she left at our house last month. It wasn't difficult. The casual way she admitted it stunned me. Do you hear yourself? This is insane, Barbara. What's insane is threatening to keep my son's child from me over a simple medical test. Simple? You secretly tested my baby because you hoped to prove she wasn't Noah's. You wanted to destroy my marriage, my family. Barbara leaned forward, her voice low but intense. I wanted to protect my son from making the same mistake his father made. The words hung between us like a physical thing. I sank slowly back into my chair. What are you talking about? Barbara's lips pressed into Bauer, a thin line as if she regretted the outburst. Nothing. Forget I said anything. But I couldn't. Something in her expression, a mix of old pain and bitter triumph, told me we'd stumbled onto the real issue, something deeper than her dislike of me. What mistake did Thomas make, Barbara? She looked away, staring out the window at the passing traffic. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its sharp edge. Thomas had an affair before we were married, a brief entanglement with a woman from the wrong side of town. She claimed she was pregnant, demanded money. Thomas was young, foolish. He paid her. What does this have to do with Noah? With us? Barbara's gaze snapped back to me. 2 years ago, a young man approached Thomas at his office, claimed to be his son from that liaison, wanted to be acknowledged, said his mother had confessed everything on her deathbed. I felt a chill despite the coffee shop's warmth. Is he Thomas's son? Thomas refused to find out, said it didn't matter after all these years. But I saw how it affected him. The Guilt? The doubt. I wasn't about to let Noah go through that. I needed to be sure. So this wasn't really about me at all, I said slowly. This was about your own insecurities, your own past. I was protecting my family. No, I countered. You were projecting your fears onto me, punishing me for something I had nothing to do with. Barbara's mouth tightened, but she didn't deny it. Does Noah know about his possible half-brother? Of course not, Barbara snapped. And you're not going to tell him. That's not your decision to make. It would devastate him. More than finding out his mother secretly tested his daughter's DNA? Barbara's face paled. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? You've given me every reason to, Barbara. You've treated me like an intruder from the moment we met. You've undermined me as a wife, as a mother. You've violated my daughter's privacy and my trust. Why should I protect you now? Her composure cracked. For the first time since I'd known her, Barbara Mitchell looked genuinely afraid. Please, she whispered. Noah adores his father. Finding out Thomas might have another son, it would change everything he believes about our family. Maybe it should change, I said, standing up again. Maybe the perfect Mitchell family isn't so perfect after all. I gathered my things, tucking the envelope back into my bag. Barbara remained seated, looking suddenly older, diminished. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. But whatever I decide, it won't be for your benefit. I left her sitting there, her tea untouched, her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Noah. Mom just called. Said you two had coffee. Everything okay? I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Barbara had beaten me to him. What had she said? What story had she spun? We need to talk. I typed back. Something important, tonight. His reply was immediate. Sounds serious. Should I be worried? Just come home early if you can. Will do. Love you. 3 simple words that suddenly carried the weight of our entire future. Did he love me enough to believe me over his mother? To accept that the woman who raised him was capable of such a breach of trust? I drove to Greenleaf Park instead of going home, needing time to think, to plan. Sitting on a bench overlooking the duck pond, I called Rachel again. She admitted it, I told her. She took Lily's pacifier and had her tested. That's illegal, Rachel gasped. You could press charges. It gets worse, I said, and explained about Thomas's possible illegitimate son, Barbara's fear of history, repeating itself. So this wasn't even really about you, Rachel mused. It was about her own family drama. Exactly. But now I don't know what to do. Do I tell Noah everything? Do I confront Thomas? Do I just try to move past this for Lily's sake? What does your gut say? I watched a mother and toddler throwing bread to the ducks, the child's laughter carrying across the water. That I'm tired of secrets, that Noah deserves the truth, even if it hurts. That Lily deserves to grow up in a family built on honesty, not appearances. Then you have your answer, Rachel said gently. We talked a while longer, discussing approaches, preparing for possible reactions. By the time we hung up, I felt steadier, more resolved. This wouldn't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever was. On my way home, I made one more stop, at Sunrise Labs, the facility listed on the DNA test results. I needed to understand exactly what had happened, how Barbara had managed to authorize this test without parental consent. The receptionist directed me to the office of Marcus Wilson, the lab's primary technician. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a serious demeanor, clearly uncomfortable when I explained who I was. I can't discuss specific tests, Mrs. Reynolds, he began. Privacy regulations. My privacy was already violated, I interrupted, placing the results on his desk. My mother-in-law had my infant daughter tested without my knowledge or consent. I need to know how that was possible. Marcus examined the paperwork, his frown deepening. This shouldn't have happened. We require consent forms signed by legal guardians for minors. Well, it did happen, so either someone forged my signature, or your lab made a serious error. He tapped a few keys on his computer, pulling up records. The order was placed by a Barbara Mitchell. She claimed to be the child's legal guardian. She's the grandmother, not the guardian. The consent form indicates. He paused, studying the screen. This isn't right. The signature doesn't match the name. It's signed Emma Reynolds, but the handwriting is. He looked up at me. Do you have ID, Mrs. Reynolds? And perhaps a sample of your signature? I showed him my driver's license and signed a blank piece of paper. He compared them to what was in the system, then sat back, face grim. This is a fraudulent submission. The signature on our form doesn't match yours. I'm deeply sorry. We should have verified more carefully. So my mother-in-law forged my signature to test my daughter. It appears so. This is a serious ethical breach on our part. I'll need to report this to management immediately. What will happen? To us? An internal investigation, possibly fines. To your mother-in-law? That depends on whether you want to pursue legal action. Did I? Part of me wanted Barbara to face consequences, to understand the gravity of what she'd done. But another part knew that legal action would devastate Noah, create a rift that might never heal. I need to think about that, I said finally. But there's something else you might be able to help me with. I explained about Thomas and the young man claiming to be his son. If I wanted to find out for sure, to help my family get closure, how would that work? Marcus considered this. Both parties would need to consent to testing, but yes, we could determine paternity conclusively. Thank you. I stood to leave, then hesitated. One more thing. The results of my daughter's test. They confirmed. My husband is her father, correct? Yes, Marcus said firmly. The probability is overwhelming. There's no question. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Even though I'd never doubted, having this confirmation from someone impartial somehow mattered. Mrs. Reynolds, Marcus called as I reached the door. For what it's worth, what your mother-in-law did was wrong on every level. Some people think DNA is just science, just facts. But it's more than that. It's identity, it's family, it's deeply personal. No one has the right to access that information without proper consent. His words stayed with me as I drove home to prepare for the conversation that would change everything. No one had the right, yet Barbara had taken that right, had violated our trust in the most fundamental way. By the time Noah's truck pulled into our driveway that evening, I had made my decision. The truth, all of it, was the only way forward. No matter how painful, no matter the consequences. Noah kissed me as he came through the door, then glanced around. Where's Lily? Rachel's watching her tonight. We need to talk without distractions. His face grew serious. This sounds ominous. What's going on, Em? I led him to the living room, where I'd placed the DNA test results on the coffee table. I found something yesterday. Something that's going to upset you. Noah looked at the envelope, confusion creasing his brow. What is that? A DNA test. For Lily. I watched his face carefully. A paternity test. He recoiled as if I'd slapped him. Why would you have our daughter tested? Did you think I wasn't? I didn't order it. I interrupted gently. Your mother did. Noah stared at me, disbelief written across his features. That's impossible. Mom would never. She did, Noah. She took Lily's pacifier from your parents' house last month, forged my signature on the consent forms, had her tested without either of our knowledge. There must be some mistake. He reached for the envelope, pulled out the papers. His eyes widened as he scanned the results. This can't be real. I confronted her this morning. She admitted everything. Noah's hands began to shake. Why? Why would she do this? This was the moment, the point where I could either tell him everything or soften the blow. I chose truth. She wanted to be sure Lily was yours. She didn't trust me, Noah, never has. I took a deep breath. And there's more. The reason she's so paranoid, so protective, it's about your father. As gently as possible, I explained. What Barbara had told me about Thomas's past, the affair, the possible half-brother. Noah listened in stunned silence, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he stood up abruptly, pacing the room. All these years, he muttered. All these perfect family Sunday dinners, the Mitchell legacy, family honor. It was all a lie. Not all of it, I said softly. Your parents do love you. That's real. Is it? He turned to me, eyes bright with unshed tears. Or am I just another prop in their performance? The dutiful son carrying on the family business, marrying the right person, or at least the person they chose for me. Vanessa, I said quietly. God. Noah raked a hand through his hair. All those comments Mom made, the comparisons, the not-so-subtle hints. I thought she was just being a difficult mother-in-law. I had no idea she was actually... He couldn't finish the sentence. Trying to prove our child wasn't yours, I completed for him. I'm so sorry, Noah. He dropped back onto the couch beside me, taking my hands in his. No, I'm sorry. I should have seen it, should have stopped it, protected you both. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there. He squeezed my hands. What do you want to do now? It was the question I'd been asking. Myself all day. I think we need space from your parents. Time to process this. And eventually, we need to talk to your father. He deserves to know about the test. And you deserve to know the truth about your possible half-brother. Noah nodded. Slowly. And legally? What Mom did. It was criminal, wasn't it? It was, I acknowledged. But pursuing that would mean courts, lawyers, public records. Do we want Lily to someday read about all this? I think your mother needs consequences, but maybe not legal ones. Then what? Boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries. And the knowledge that she nearly lost her son and granddaughter through her own actions. Noah pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between finding that envelope and deciding not to burn your family's house down, I replied, only half joking. He laughed, a strangled sound caught between humor and pain. I would have helped you light the match. We held each other, for a long time, making plans, finding our way forward through this tangle of betrayal and truth. Later, after we'd retrieved Lily from Rachel's and put her to bed, Noah made a decision. I'm going to see them tomorrow, he said. Alone. I need to look them in the eyes when I confront them. Are you sure? No, he admitted, but it's necessary, for all of us. I kissed him, tasting the salt of tears neither of us had realized were falling. Whatever happens, we face it together, the three of us, our real family. Our real family, he echoed, glancing toward the nursery where Lily slept, blissfully unaware of the storm around her. That's all that matters now. Noah left early the next morning, the weight of his decision evident in the tightness of his shoulders and the grim set of his jaw. I watched from the doorway as he backed his truck out of our driveway, wondering what would be left of his relationship with his parents when he returned. Part of me wanted to go with him, to stand beside him as he confronted the lies that had shaped his family. But this was his battle to fight, his moment of truth with the people who had raised him. I spent the morning in a haze of anxiety, barely, noticing as Lily babbled happily in her playpen, oblivious to the turmoil her small existence had inadvertently caused. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Any word from Noah yet?" "Nothing," I replied. Radio silence. "That's either very good or very bad. Thanks for that reassuring thought. Sorry. Want me to come over? I can bring lunch." I hesitated, torn between wanting company and needing space to process everything. "Thanks, but I think I need to be alone right now. I'll call if that changes." I tried to distract myself with housework, with Lily's feeding schedule, with mindless television, but my thoughts kept returning to Noah, to Barbara, to the conversation that might be happening at that very moment. Would Thomas deny everything? Would Barbara twist the story, paint herself as the concerned grandmother, me as the unreasonable daughter-in-law? Would Noah stand firm in the face of the people who had shaped his entire worldview? By mid-afternoon, my nerves couldn't take the waiting anymore. I bundled Lily into her car seat and drove to Greenleaf Park, hoping the fresh air and change of scenery might calm us both. The late autumn sunshine filtered through golden leaves as I pushed Lily's stroller along winding paths, nodding at other parents who passed by with their own children. How normal they looked, how untroubled. Did they all have family secrets? Hidden tests, unspoken doubts lurking beneath their peaceful exteriors. "Mrs. Reynolds?" I turned at the sound of my name, surprised to see Marcus Wilson, the lab technician, jogging along the path toward me. He slowed as he approached, his face flushed from exertion, wearing running clothes instead of his lab coat. "Mr. Wilson," I acknowledged, trying to mask my surprise. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I live nearby," he explained, gesturing vaguely toward the north end of the park. "I run here most afternoons." His eyes dropped to Lily, who was contentedly chewing on a plastic toy. "Is this your daughter?" I nodded, a strange protectiveness welling up inside me. This man knew my daughter's genetic makeup better than I did, had analyzed her DNA without my knowledge or consent. The thought made me uneasy, despite his apparent sympathy yesterday. "She's beautiful," he said sincerely. "Looks like you." "Thank you." I studied his face, wondering if he had children of his own, if he understood the visceral violation I'd felt upon discovering the test. I spoke to my husband about everything. He's confronting his parents today. Marcus winced. "That can't be easy for any of you." He hesitated, then added, "I wanted to let you know that I spoke with management yesterday after you left. We're implementing new verification protocols for all minor testing. Photo ID verification, video consent, the works. What happened with your daughter won't happen again." "I appreciate that," I said, meaning it. At least some good might come from this mess. "I also wanted to give you this." He pulled a business card from the pocket of his running shorts. "My direct line, in case you decide to pursue the other matter we discussed. Thomas's possible son." I took the card, tucking it into my jacket. "Thank you." "For what it's worth," Marcus added, "I've been in this field for 15 years. Family secrets have a way of surfacing eventually, whether we're ready for them or not. In my experience, it's better to face them on your own terms than to have them explode when you least expect it." His words echoed in my mind long after he'd continued his run, disappearing around a bend in the path. Family secrets. How many families had he seen torn apart by hidden truths? How many DNA tests had revealed unexpected connections, destroyed? Assumed relationships, created new ones from nothing? My phone rang as I was strapping Lily back into her car seat, preparing to head home. Noah's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, heart pounding. "How did it go?" His laugh was hollow. "About as well as you'd expect. Dad denied everything at first. Then he got angry. Then he admitted it might be possible. Mom cried, blamed everyone but herself. It was a mess, Em." "Are you okay?" A long pause. Not really. Can you meet me somewhere? I don't want to talk about this over the phone. Of course. Where? The old boathouse by the lake? In about an hour? I need some time to clear my head first. We'll be there. The Oakwood boathouse was where Noah had proposed 2 years earlier, on a moonlit night with the water lapping gently at the dock beneath us. It was our place, untouched by family drama, holding only good memories. I understood why he'd want to meet there, to reconnect with what was real and true between us before wading back into the murky waters of his family's deception. Lily fell asleep on the drive, and I transferred her carefully to her stroller without waking her. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lake as I pushed the stroller along the weathered planks of the dock, heading toward the boathouse at the far end. Noah's truck was already parked in the small gravel lot, but he wasn't inside the vehicle. I found him sitting on a bench overlooking the water, his back to me, shoulders slumped in a posture of defeat I'd never seen before. He turned at the sound of the stroller wheels on the wooden boards, and the devastation in his eyes nearly took my breath away. "Noah," I murmured, sitting beside him, Lily's stroller positioned in front of us. "What happened?" He reached for my hand, gripping it so tightly it almost hurt. "It's worse than we thought, Em. So much worse." "Tell me," I urged gently. Noah took a deep breath, staring out at the darkening water. "Dad admitted he had an affair before marrying Mom. Said he was young, stupid, in love with a girl his parents wouldn't approve of. Her name was Eleanor Diaz. She worked at his father's country club as a waitress. When she got pregnant, his parents intervened, paid her off, made her sign an agreement never to contact him again. Like your mother said." Noah nodded grimly. "But here's where it gets complicated. Dad says he never knew for sure if the baby was his. The agreement his parents arranged prohibited any contact, any acknowledgement. He married Mom a few months later, a suitable match his family had been pushing for years. Did he love her? Your mother? He says he grew to love her. But the way he talked about Eleanor..." Noah's voice faltered. "I've never heard him speak about Mom that way. With such regret." I squeezed his hand, understanding the implications. The Mitchell family legacy, the perfect marriage, the dutiful son following in his father's footsteps, all of it built on Thomas's sacrifice, of the woman he truly loved. What about the man who approached him 2 years ago? The possible son? His name is Gabriel Diaz. He's 35, a music teacher in Riverside. Eleanor died of cancer 3 years ago. Before she died, she told Gabriel everything about Dad, the payoff, the agreement. Showed him the papers she'd kept all these years. He decided to find Thomas Mitchell to see if the man who might be his father would acknowledge him after all this time. "And your father refused to find out for sure," I guessed. Noah nodded. "Dad says he panicked, told Gabriel he couldn't help him, that the past was best left buried, gave him money to go away. When that didn't work, he threatened legal action if Gabriel contacted him again. Cited the agreement Eleanor had signed." "That's horrible, Noah." "It gets worse." Noah's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Mom knew about Eleanor from the beginning. The pregnancy, the payoff, all of it. Her family and Dad's family were old friends, business partners. The marriage was practically arranged, and they needed to handle the problem before the wedding could proceed." I felt sick. So Barbara wasn't an innocent party in this. Far from it. She admitted she went along with everything because she wanted the Mitchell name, the status that came with it. She knew Dad didn't love her, not at first. She said she was determined to make him forget Eleanor, to be the perfect wife, to create the perfect family. And when Gabriel showed up 2 years ago, it shattered her carefully constructed world, made her obsess over family, over bloodlines, over what makes someone a real Mitchell. When I married you instead of Vanessa, someone from a family with connections she approved of, and then Lily came along. She projected her fears onto us, I finished, convinced herself history was repeating itself. Yes, in her mind, you became Eleanor, the threat to her perfect family, and Lily. He trailed off, his voice breaking as he glanced at our sleeping daughter. Became the child she feared might not belong. I felt a surge of anger, not just for myself, but for Lily, for Noah, for Gabriel, all pawns in Barbara's desperate game to maintain her illusion of the ideal family. Noah ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I recognized well. I told them I needed time, that I couldn't process all this at once. Dad begged me not to tell anyone, especially not his father, who's still alive in that nursing home across town. Said it would kill him to know the truth had come out. And your mother? Noah's expression hardened. She tried to justify the DNA test, said she was protecting me, protecting the family. When I showed her the lab results, told her what she did was illegal, possibly criminal, she broke down, started crying about family loyalty and how you've turned me against them. Noah. Don't worry, he interrupted. I shut that down. Immediately. Told her you wanted to press charges, but I convinced you not to. That she should be thanking you for your restraint, not attacking you. Despite everything, I felt a small flicker of vindication. What did she say to that? Nothing. Just stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Noah's face softened slightly. I think that's when it finally hit her, that she might lose me over this, that her actions have consequences. What do you want to do now? I asked, brushing my thumb over his knuckles. About all of it? Noah was quiet for a long moment, watching a pair of ducks glide across the lake surface. I want to meet him, he said finally. Gabriel. I want to know if he's my brother. I shouldn't have been surprised. Noah had always valued truth, even when it was painful. It was one of the things I loved most about him. Are you sure? It would make everything real in a way it isn't quite yet. It's already real, Em, whether we acknowledge it or not. And Gabriel deserves answers as much as I do. What about your parents? Noah's jaw tightened. I told them I need space, that I'll contact them when I'm ready, and that when I do, things will be different. No more secrets, no more pretending. How did they take that? Dad seemed relieved almost, like a weight had been lifted. Mom was devastated. Kept saying I was throwing away everything they'd built. Everything they'd sacrificed for. I thought about Barbara's careful curation of the Mitchell image, the country club memberships, the charity board positions, the immaculate house where nothing was ever out of place, especially the truth. Your mother has spent her entire life maintaining an illusion, Noah. It's going to take time for her to accept that it's shattered. If she ever does, he said grimly. Lily stirred in her stroller, making soft waking sounds. Noah reached for her automatically, lifting her into his arms with a gentleness that made my heart ache. She blinked up at him, her tiny hand reaching to pat his cheek as if sensing his distress. Hey, little bug, he murmured, pressing his lips to her forehead. You have no idea what's happening, do you? All this drama over your perfect little self. I watched them together, father and daughter, their connection undeniable not just in the lab results hidden in my desk drawer, but in the way they looked at each other, in the way Lily's face lit up at the sound of his voice. DNA might confirm biological ties, but it was these moments, these small, tender interactions, that truly defined family. I called the lab technician, Noah said, still focused on Lily. Marcus Wilson. Asked about testing for Gabriel and Dad. This surprised me. When? On my way here. You left his card on the kitchen counter last night. I figured if we're doing this, we should do it right. He glanced at me. I hope that's okay. Of course it is. What did he say? That he could arrange it if both parties consent. Discreetly, professionally. No more mistakes. And you trust him after what happened? With Lily's test? Noah considered this. Strangely, yes. He seemed genuinely upset about the protocol breach. Said he's implementing new safeguards because of our case. And really, who better to handle something like this than someone who's seen firsthand how these things can go wrong? I couldn't argue with that logic. So what's next? I need to find Gabriel. The last address Dad had for him was in Riverside, but that was 2 years ago. He might have moved on. I could help you look, I offered. I'm pretty good at online research. Noah smiled for the first time since I'd arrived, a small but genuine curve of his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. I don't want to do any of this alone, Em. You won't have to, I promised, leaning against his shoulder. Whatever happens, we face it together. We stayed at the lake until darkness fell, talking through possibilities, making plans, finding our way forward through this tangle of revelations. By the time we headed home, Lily was asleep again, and Noah seemed steadier, more resolved. It took us 3 days to find Gabriel Diaz. He'd moved from Riverside to Carson Heights, a suburban community about 40 miles away, where he taught music at a local high school. His social media presence was minimal, but I managed to find his work email through the school's website. What do I even say to him? Noah asked, staring at the blank email draft on his laptop screen. Hey, my dad might be your dad too. Want to spit in a tube and find out for sure? Despite the tension of the moment, I laughed. Maybe something a bit more tactful. Noah rubbed his eyes, exhaustion evident in the slump of his shoulders. He hadn't slept well since the confrontation with his parents, waking from nightmares he refused to describe, lying awake for hours staring at the ceiling. I'm not good with words like you are. Help me, Em. Together, we crafted a simple, honest message that explained who Noah was, mentioned the conversation with Thomas, and expressed a desire to meet in person to discuss the situation. We deliberately avoided mentioning DNA testing, feeling that was a conversation best had face-to-face. Should I send it from my work email? Noah asked. The Mitchell construction header might give it more credibility. I shook my head. Use your personal account. This isn't about the family business. It's about you and Gabriel as people. Noah nodded, taking a deep breath before hitting send. Now we wait, I guess. We didn't have to wait long. Gabriel's reply came the next morning, a single paragraph that managed to convey both caution and hope. Noah, thank you for reaching out. I didn't expect to hear from anyone in the Mitchell family after my last interaction with Thomas. I've thought about this moment for a long time, what I would say, if given the chance. I think you're right. This conversation should happen in person. I'm free this Saturday afternoon if that works for you. There's a coffee shop called Beans and Books in Carson Heights where we could meet. Let me know. Gabriel. He sounds normal, Noah said, sounding almost surprised. Reasonable. What were you expecting? 2 heads and a forked tongue? I teased gently. I don't know. After the way Dad described their meeting, I thought he might be angry, bitter. But this sounds like someone who just wants answers, like me. We arranged to meet Gabriel that Saturday at 2 o'clock. As the day approached, Noah grew increasingly anxious, vacillating between determined curiosity and doubt about whether he was doing the right thing. What if this makes everything worse? He asked Friday night as we lay in bed, another sleepless night stretching before us. What if he's nothing like me? What if he is? What if Dad refuses the test? What if... I silenced his spiraling with a kiss. You're overthinking this. Tomorrow you'll meet him, you'll talk. That's all that has to happen right now, one step at a time. Noah pulled me closer, burying his face in my hair. When did you get so wise? Around the time I married. Mitchell, I replied, trying to lighten the mood. Dealing with your family requires advanced wisdom skills. He chuckled against my neck, his body finally relaxing. I'm sorry about all of this, Em. You didn't sign up for this level of drama. Actually, I did, I countered. For better or worse, remember? This definitely falls under worse, but we're getting through it together. Saturday dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn day that belied the tension gripping our household. Noah changed his outfit 3 times, settling. Finally on a simple blue button-down and jeans, casual but respectful. I'd offered to come with him, but we both agreed his first meeting with Gabriel should be one-on-one. This was about the two of them, their shared history, their possible connection. Call me the second you're done, I insisted, straightening his collar one last time before he left. Or text if you can't talk. Just let me know you're okay. I will. He kissed me goodbye, then crouched to kiss Lily's head where she played on her activity mat. Wish me luck, Bug. I watched from the doorway as his truck disappeared down the street, a knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. Whatever happened, today would change things irrevocably. There would be no going back to the family dynamics we'd known before, for better or worse. Rachel arrived an hour later, bearing wine and sympathy. I figured you could use company while you wait, she explained, setting 2 glasses on the kitchen counter. And possibly alcohol. It's barely noon, I protested, though the thought was tempting. Fine. We'll wait until 1. That's practically evening. She nodded toward the baby monitor where Lily could be seen napping in her crib. How long will she be out? Another hour, probably. She was up early today. Perfect. Just enough time for you to tell me everything. I filled Rachel in on the developments of the past few days, the confrontation with Noah's parents, the search for Gabriel, today's meeting. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting between shock, outrage, and sympathy. So, Noah might have a half-brother, she summarized when I finished. One his parents paid to keep secret for over 30 years. Essentially, yes. And Barbara tested Lily because she was paranoid about history repeating itself. That's our best guess. She hasn't exactly been forthcoming about her reasoning, beyond what she told me at the coffee shop. Rachel shook her head in disbelief. And I thought my family was dysfunctional because my mom and aunt haven't spoken since the Great Thanksgiving cranberry sauce debate of 2018. That made me laugh, which I realized I hadn't done much of lately. Perspective is everything. Yes? How are you really doing with all this, Em? Rachel asked, her voice softening. And don't give me the I'm fine speech you've probably been giving Noah. This is me you're talking to. I sighed, the weight of the past week settling heavily on my shoulders. Honestly, I'm exhausted, angry, hurt. I keep thinking about all. Those times Barbara looked at Lily like she was searching for something wrong, all those little comments about her not having Mitchell features. She was literally looking for proof that my daughter wasn't her granddaughter. That's messed up, on so many levels. And the worst part is, even though the test proved Noah is Lily's father, I don't think it's changed how Barbara sees me. In her mind, I'm still the outsider, the threat, the Eleanor to her perfect family narrative. Screw her, Rachel said, bluntly. You're 10 times the woman she is. You didn't build your entire identity on lies and denial. No, but I married into a family that did. I traced the rim of my water glass, considering. Sometimes I wonder if we can ever move past this, if Noah and I can have a normal relationship with his parents after everything that's happened. Define normal, Rachel challenged, because from what you've told me, normal for the Mitchells was pretty toxic to begin with. She had a point. The Mitchell family dynamic had always been built on appearances, on meeting Barbara's exacting standards, on Thomas's quiet acquiescence to his wife's vision of perfection. Was that something worth trying to salvage? Maybe not, I conceded. But I want Lily to have grandparents in her life. I want Noah to have some kind of relationship with his parents, even if it's different from before. Family is complicated, but it's still family. Rachel's expression softened. You're a better person than I am. After what Barbara did, I'd have cut her off completely. Some days I want to, I admitted. But then I think about Noah, about how much he's lost already. His idea of who his parents are, his family history, his sense of belonging. I can't be responsible for him losing them entirely. That wouldn't be on you, Em. That would be on Barbara and her actions. Maybe, but relationships aren't that simple, are they? Especially family ones. Rachel opened her mouth to respond but was interrupted by the chime of my phone. A text from Noah. Just leaving the coffee shop, a lot to process. Call you in a few minutes. My heart raced. He's done meeting with Gabriel. And? Rachel prompted. He says there's a lot to process. He'll call soon. We sat in tense silence, waiting for the phone to ring. When it finally did, I answered so quickly I nearly dropped the device. Noah, how did it go? His exhale was long and shaky. He looks like me, Em. Like, really looks like me. Same eyes, same chin, even the same way of talking with his hands when he gets animated. It's uncanny. I glanced at Rachel, mouthing, "They look alike," to her widened eyes. So you think he's really your brother? I know he is, Noah replied without hesitation. DNA test or not, there's no question. But we're going to do the test anyway, for closure, for both of us. How was he, Gabriel? Nice, smart, funny. Actually, he's been teaching music for 10 years, plays 5 instruments, lives with his girlfriend, a pediatric nurse. No kids yet, but they're talking about it. Noah's voice held a note of wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe he was describing someone related to him. He showed me pictures of his mom, of Eleanor. She was beautiful, Em, the way he talked about her. She sounds like she was an amazing person. Did he tell you about meeting your dad? Noah's voice hardened slightly. Yeah, Dad wasn't exactly welcoming. Told Gabriel that even if the timing suggested he might be his son, there was no way to know for sure, and that pursuing it would only hurt people unnecessarily. Offered him money to go away and forget the whole thing. Did Gabriel take it? No, he said he didn't want money, just acknowledgement. When Dad refused, he decided to respect his wishes and not push harder. But he kept hoping someone in the family might reach out eventually. And now you have, I said softly. Now I have, Noah agreed. We're meeting at Sunrise Labs next Friday, both of us. I'm going to call Dad tomorrow, tell him what's happening, give him one more chance to be part of this. And if he refuses, then Gabriel and I proceed without him. I can't force Dad to acknowledge the truth, but I'm not going to ignore it either, not anymore. Pride swelled in my chest. This was the man I'd fallen in love with, strong, principled, brave enough to face difficult truths. I'm proud of you, Noah. This can't be easy. It's not, he admitted. But neither was finding out my mother had our daughter tested behind our backs. Neither was learning my entire family history is built on lies. At some point, you have to choose truth, no matter how painful. When will you be home? I'm driving back now. Should be there in about an hour. He paused, then added, Gabriel wants to meet you and Lily. I told him maybe next weekend, after we get the test results. Is that okay? The prospect of meeting this man who might be Noah's brother, of expanding our family circle in such an unexpected way was both daunting and exciting. Of course, I'd like that. Good. I'll see you soon. Love you, Em. Love you too. I ended the call, looking up to find Rachel watching me expectantly. Well? Spill it. What happened? As I recounted Noah's meeting with Gabriel, the uncanny physical resemblance, the plans for DNA testing, Rachel's expression shifted from curiosity to amazement. This is like something out of a movie, she said when I finished. The secret child, the family scandal, the dramatic reunion. Except it's our real life, I reminded her. And there's still a lot that could go wrong. Thomas could refuse to acknowledge Gabriel even with proof. Barbara could make things even more difficult. The Mitchell family could fracture completely. Or, Rachel countered, you could all find a way forward that's more honest, more authentic. Maybe this is exactly what needed to happen. Maybe, I allowed, thinking of Noah's description of Gabriel, the wonder in his voice when he spoke about potentially having a brother. I guess we'll find out. Rachel left shortly before Noah arrived home, giving us space to process the day's events together. When his truck pulled into the driveway, I met him at the door, searching his face for signs of distress. Instead, I found something I hadn't expected, a quiet certainty, a peace that hadn't been there when he left. You okay? I asked as he hung his keys on the hook by the door. I think I am, he replied, pulling me into an embrace. For the first time since this whole thing started, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Like I'm taking control of the narrative instead of letting it control me. That's good, I murmured against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. That's really good, Noah. He pulled back slightly, his eyes finding mine. There's something else. Something I didn't tell you on the phone because I wanted to see your face when I said it. What is it? Gabriel asked about you. About how we met, how long we've been married. I showed him pictures of you and Lily on my phone. Noah's expression softened with memory. When he saw Lily, he got this look on his face. Said she has the Mitchell eyes. His eyes, my eyes. Said there was no doubt she belongs to our family. Tears sprang to my eyes, unexpected and hot. After weeks of feeling judged, scrutinized, found wanting by Barbara's critical gaze, the simple acceptance from a man who might be Noah's brother hit me with surprising force. He said that? Noah nodded, wiping a tear from my cheek with his thumb. He did. And I realized something important, Em. Family isn't about DNA tests or bloodlines or maintaining some perfect image. It's about who sees you, who accepts you, who stands beside you when things get hard. Like you're doing for Gabriel, I said quietly. Like you've done for me this whole time, he corrected. Even when my family was at their worst, you never walked away. You could have taken Lily and left after finding that test, could have pressed charges against my mother. Instead, you've been my rock through all of this. He pressed his forehead to mine, our breath mingling in the small space between us. Whatever happens next, with my parents, with Gabriel, with all of it, I want you to know that you and Lily are my true north, my real family. Nothing will ever change that. I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me like a healing balm. In the chaos of the past week, with its revelations and confrontations, I hadn't realized how much I needed this reassurance, this reminder that our small family unit remained strong and unshaken. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, he replied. Now, let's go see our daughter. Hand in hand, we walked to the nursery where Lily was just waking from her nap, her tiny fists reaching toward the mobile above her crib. As Noah lifted, her holding her close, I saw what Gabriel had seen. The unmistakable Mitchell eyes, dark and expressive, looking out at the world with trust and curiosity. DNA might have confirmed what we already knew, but in that moment, watching Noah and Lily together, I understood that the true bonds of family ran deeper than science could ever measure. They were built in these quiet moments, these small acts of love and care, these choices to see and accept each other fully. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many, I had no doubt, we would face them together, as a family. Not perfect, not unbroken, but real. And that, I was beginning to realize, was far more valuable than any illusion of perfection Barbara had spent her life trying to maintain. The call came early Sunday morning, pulling me from a deep sleep. Noah's phone vibrated against the nightstand, its harsh buzz shattering the peaceful quiet of our bedroom. He fumbled for it in the darkness, squinting at the screen. It was 5:47 a.m. "It's my dad," he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. He sat up, running a hand through his hair before answering. "Dad? What's going on?" I watched Noah's face change as he listened, confusion giving way to concern, then alarm. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, fully awake now. "When? Is she okay?" More listening. "Which hospital? Pinecrest? Okay, I'll be there soon." "What happened?" I asked as he ended the call, already reaching for the jeans he'd draped over a chair the night before. "Mom collapsed this morning. Dad found her unconscious in the bathroom. They're at Pinecrest Hospital." Noah's movements were mechanical, automatic, as he pulled on his clothes. "Dad thinks it was a panic attack that triggered some kind of cardiac event. She's stable, but they're running tests." I slid out of bed, reaching for my own clothes. "I'll get dressed. We can take Lily to Rachel's on the way." Noah paused, looking at me with surprise. "You want to come?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course, she's your mother. She's in the hospital." After everything she did, the DNA test, the accusations, I took his hands in mine, feeling the slight tremor running through them. "That doesn't matter right now, Noah. She's still family, still Lily's grandmother. And you shouldn't be alone for this." Relief flooded his features, followed quickly by guilt. "I don't deserve you, Em." "Yes, you do," I countered, pressing a quick kiss to his lips. "Now, let's go." Rachel answered her door in pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep, but took Lily without question when we explained the situation. "Take as long as you need," she assured us, settling our still drowsy daughter on her hip. "We'll be fine here." The drive to Pinecrest Hospital was tense and quiet. Noah gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, his jaw clenched against emotions I could only guess at. We hadn't spoken to his parents since his confrontation with them a week earlier. The silence between the families had stretched like a physical thing, growing heavier with each passing day. "What are you going to say to them?" I asked gently as we pulled into the hospital parking lot. Noah cut the engine, staring at the imposing white building before us. "I have no idea," he admitted. "A week ago, I was so angry I could barely look at them. Now—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Now I don't know what I feel." "That's okay," I assured him. "You don't have to have all the answers right now." We found Thomas in the cardiac care waiting room, a styrofoam cup of untouched coffee cooling in his hands. He looked older than I remembered, diminished somehow, as if the events of the past week had physically shrunk him. When he saw Noah, something like relief crossed his face, quickly followed by uncertainty. "Son," he said, rising to his feet. His eyes flickered to me, surprise evident. "Emma, I didn't expect. Thank you for coming." Noah stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he might embrace his father. Instead, he stopped just short, hands shoved into his pockets. "How is she?" "Stable," Thomas replied, sinking back into his chair. We sat across from him, the small waiting room empty except for the three of us. "The doctor thinks it was stress-induced. Her blood pressure was through the roof. They're keeping her for observation, running more tests." "Stress," Noah repeated, the word heavy with unspoken implications. Because of our conversation last week? Thomas's gaze dropped to his hands, twisting the wedding band he'd worn for over 30 years. Barbara hasn't been sleeping, barely eating. She's been different since you left. Quiet, withdrawn. I've never seen her like this before. A complicated mix of emotions crossed Noah's face. Concern, guilt, frustration. I needed time. Dad. Space to process everything. I know, Thomas said quietly. We both understand that. But Barbara? You know how she is. Family means everything to her. Does it? Noah's voice hardened slightly. Or does the idea of family mean everything? The perfect Mitchell image she spent decades cultivating? I placed a gentle hand on Noah's arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. Let's focus on her health right now, I suggested softly. The rest can wait. Thomas shot me a grateful look. They said we can see her soon. One at a time, though. She's been asking for you, Noah. Surprise flickered across Noah's face. Me? Not you. Thomas's smile was sad, resigned. She needs her son right now, not her husband. I think she's afraid you won't forgive her, that she's lost you for good. Noah sat back, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration I knew well. I'm still angry, Dad. About the test, about Gabriel, about all the lies. That hasn't changed. I know. But I'm here, Noah continued. That has to count for something. It counts for everything, Thomas replied, his voice thick with emotion. A nurse appeared at the waiting room door, clipboard in hand. Family of Barbara Mitchell? Thomas rose, gesturing to Noah. Her son would like to see her now. Noah stood, hesitating for a moment before turning to me. Will you be okay here? Of course, I assured him. Take your time. As Noah followed the nurse down the corridor, an uncomfortable silence descended between Thomas and me. We'd never been particularly close. Our relationship defined primarily by polite small talk at family gatherings. Now, with all pretenses stripped away, I wasn't sure what remained. Thank you for bringing him, Thomas said finally, breaking the silence. And for coming yourself, after what Barbara did. I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd never wanted to see either of us again. I considered it, I admitted honestly. What she did was unforgivable. Not just the DNA test, but the suspicion behind it, the suggestion that I would lie about Lily's paternity. Thomas nodded, his expression pained. It was wrong, all of it. I should have stopped her, should have seen what was happening. But Barbara has always been forceful in her convictions, and I've spent 30 years going along with what she wanted. It seemed easier that way. Even when what she wanted hurt other people, Eleanor, Gabriel, your own son? He flinched at Eleanor's name, an old pain surfacing. I've made many mistakes in my life, Emma. The way I handled the situation with Eleanor was the first and worst of them. Everything else, my marriage to Barbara, the family business, the carefully maintained image, it all spiraled from that one decision to turn my back on the woman I loved and the child we might have created together. The raw honesty in his voice surprised me. Why are you telling me this? Thomas met my gaze directly for perhaps the first time since I'd known him. Because someone in this family needs to start telling the truth. And because I see in you what I should have seen in myself at your age, the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Before I could respond, the waiting room door opened again, and a doctor in blue scrubs entered. Mr. Mitchell? I have an update on your wife's condition. Thomas stood quickly. This is my daughter-in-law, he said, gesturing to me. She's family. The small inclusion warmed something in me, unexpected, and genuine. Mrs. Mitchell experienced what we call a stress cardiomyopathy, or broken heart syndrome, the doctor explained. It's a temporary condition brought on by extreme emotional stress. Her heart function is already improving, but we'd like to keep her for another day or two for observation. Could it happen again? Thomas asked, concern etching deeper lines around his eyes. It can recur, yes. The best prevention is stress management, therapy, lifestyle changes. Mrs. Mitchell's blood pressure is concerning. She'll need medication for that. Has she been under unusual stress recently? Thomas and I exchanged glances. Yes, he answered. Simply. Family issues. The doctor nodded, making a note on her clipboard. I'll have our staff psychologist stop by to speak with her. In the meantime, try to keep her calm and relaxed. No upsetting conversations for at least a few days. After the doctor left, Thomas sank back into his chair with a heavy sigh. No upsetting conversations. That rules out just about everything we need to discuss as a family. One day at a time, I advised, surprising myself with the sympathy I felt for this man who had enabled Barbara's worst behavior for decades. Her health comes first right now. We sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes before Noah returned, his face unreadable. She's asking for you, Dad, he said, gesturing toward the door. Room 307. Thomas nodded, pausing to squeeze Noah's shoulder before heading down the hallway. How was it? I asked when he was gone. Noah dropped into the chair his father had vacated, emotionally drained. Strange. She seemed smaller? Somehow. Vulnerable. Not like the mother I've known my whole life. He ran a hand over his face. She apologized, actually said the words, I'm sorry. I don't think I've ever heard her apologize for anything before. Did you believe her? Yes, he said after a moment's reflection. I think nearly dying. Has a way of clarifying priorities. She asked about you, about Lily. Wanted to know if you could ever forgive her. What did you tell her? That I didn't know. That what she did was a serious breach of trust, not something that can be fixed with a simple apology. That you would need time. He reached for my hand. Was that okay? I squeezed his fingers, grateful for his understanding. It was perfect. And honest. She also asked about Gabriel. This surprised me. What about him? If I'd met him, what he was like, if we were going forward with the DNA test. Noah's expression softened slightly. I told her the truth, that I've met him, that I believe he's my brother regardless of what any test says, and that the test is happening this Friday, whether she and Dad accept it or not. How did she take that? Better than I expected. She didn't argue or try to talk me out of it, just asked if she could see a picture of him. Noah pulled out his phone, showing me the photo he'd taken with Gabriel at the coffee shop. I showed her this. She stared at it for a long time, then said something I never thought I'd hear from her lips. What? She said he has Thomas's smile and my eyes. Noah tucked the phone away, still processing the significance of her words. It's the closest she's come to acknowledging that he might actually be family. I was about to respond when Thomas returned, his eyes red-rimmed but his posture straighter, as if a decision had been made. She's asking for you now, Emma. Me? I couldn't hide my shock. Are you sure? Thomas nodded. She was very clear. Said there are things she needs to say to you directly. Noah and I exchanged glances. You don't have to go, he assured me. After everything she's done. No, I'll go, I interrupted, rising to my feet. We can't move forward without having this conversation. The short walk to Barbara's hospital room felt like miles, each step carrying me toward a confrontation. I'd been both dreading and desiring since finding that DNA test envelope. What could she possibly say that would make amends for such a profound violation of trust? What could I say in return that would be both honest and compassionate given her current fragile state? I paused outside room 307, gathering my courage before knocking softly on the partially open door. "Come in." Barbara's voice sounded weaker than I remembered, lacking its usual authoritative edge. She lay propped against white pillows, monitoring, wires snaking from beneath her hospital gown, an IV dripping steadily into her arm. Without her usual perfect makeup and styled hair, she looked older, frailer, a woman in her 60s showing every year of her age. "Emma," she said, attempting to sit up straighter as I entered. "Thank you for coming." "How are you feeling?" I asked, approaching the bed cautiously. "Physically or emotionally?" A ghost of her usual dry wit surfaced briefly. "The doctors tell me my heart is damaged but healing. As for the rest..." She gestured vaguely at the room around her. This is what happens when a lifetime of carefully constructed control finally collapses, I suppose. I remained standing at the foot of her bed, unsure how close she wanted me to be. "Noah said you wanted to speak with me." Barbara nodded, her fingers pleating the edge of her blanket nervously. "I owe you an apology. A sincere one, not the kind I've given in the past when social niceties demanded it." She met my gaze directly, her eyes clear despite the medication I knew she must be taking. "What I did was unforgivable. Having Lily tested behind your back, forging your signature, the suspicion behind it all. There's no justification for any of it." The directness of her apology caught me off guard. I'd expected excuses, qualifications, subtle attempts to justify her actions. "No," I agreed quietly. "There isn't. I won't insult you by trying to explain my reasoning. You deserve better than that." She paused, collecting herself. "What I will say is this. None of it was about you, Emma. It was about my own insecurities, my own desperate need to control every aspect of my family's narrative. Because of Eleanor," I said. "Because of what happened with Thomas. Before you were married." Something flickered in Barbara's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that I knew the full story. "Yes. When Thomas told me about Eleanor's pregnancy all those years ago, I convinced myself that by marrying him, by creating the perfect family, I could erase that chapter of his life, of our lives." Her voice grew quieter. "But you can't erase the past, can you? It follows you, surfaces when you least expect it. When that young man, Gabriel, appeared 2 years ago, it was like watching my worst fear materialize before my eyes." "So you projected that fear onto me and Lily?" Barbara nodded, a single tear trailing down her cheek. "When Noah chose you instead of the woman I'd selected for him, history seemed to be repeating itself. Another Mitchell man following his heart instead of his family's expectations. When Lily was born with dark eyes instead of the Mitchell blue, my paranoia took over. You do realize how deeply you hurt us, I said, not as an accusation but as a simple statement of fact. How much damage you've done to your relationship with Noah, with me, with your granddaughter. I do. Her voice broke slightly. Lying. In that bathroom this morning, unable to breathe, my heart feeling like it was being crushed in my chest, all I could think was that I might die without ever making things right. Without ever seeing my son or granddaughter again. She reached a trembling hand toward me. I don't expect forgiveness, Emma. I don't deserve it. But I am truly, deeply sorry. I hesitated, then moved closer to the bed, not taking her hand, but standing near enough that she could see I was listening, truly hearing her. I appreciate that, Barbara. I really do. But trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. It will take time, consistency, real change. I understand. She withdrew, her hand, accepting the boundary I'd set. Noah told me about the DNA test with Gabriel and Thomas. Yes, it's scheduled for Friday. Good. The word seemed to surprise us both. Barbara smiled faintly at my obvious shock. Nearly dying has a way of clarifying what matters, Emma. Family matters. Truth matters. The rest, appearances, social standing, what others think. It all seems remarkably unimportant from a hospital bed. Does Thomas feel the same way? I couldn't help asking. About Gabriel? About the test? Barbara's expression grew more complex. Thomas and I have had many conversations these past few days. Difficult ones. He's coming to terms with his past choices, with the possibility that Gabriel is his son. She hesitated, then added, he's agreed to take the test, to know for certain. This news startled me. He has? When did this happen? Last night. We talked until dawn. About Eleanor, about Noah, about you and Lily, about the people we've become versus the people we meant to be. Her gaze drifted to the window, where morning sunlight filtered through half-drawn blinds. 30 years of marriage built on an elaborate performance. What a waste. The raw honesty in her voice touched something in me. A recognition of the universal human struggle to reconcile our true selves with the personas we create for the world. Barbara had taken this dissociation to harmful extremes, but the underlying impulse was one I could understand. It's not too late, I said, surprising myself with the gentleness in my tone, to build something real. Barbara's attention snapped back to me, hope flickering across her features. Do you believe that? After everything? I considered the question carefully, wanting my answer to be truthful. I believe people can change when they have sufficient motivation, when they truly want to. A health crisis like this, it can be that motivation. And Noah, do you think he can forgive me? That's between you and him, I replied honestly. But Noah has a capacity for compassion that continually amazes me. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with him. Barbara nodded, accepting this non-committal response. And Lily? Will I still be allowed to be her grandmother? The vulnerability in the question struck me. This woman who had always presented herself as so formidable, so certain in her position and authority, was now essentially asking for permission to remain in her granddaughter's life. It represented a seismic shift in our power dynamic, one I hadn't anticipated. Lily deserves to know her grandmother, I said carefully, but on new terms, with boundaries that respect our role as her parents. No more undermining, no more criticism, no more tests. Of course. Barbara looked down at her hands, pale against the white hospital blanket. I'd like to start over with you, Emma, if that's possible. To try to be the mother-in-law you deserve, not the one I've been. I wasn't ready to make promises I might not be able to keep. Let's start with today, I suggested. With you getting better, the rest will unfold as it should. She accepted this with a small nod, seemingly understanding the limitations of what I could offer right now. Thank you for coming today, for bringing Noah. It means more than I can express. Your family, I said simply, however complicated. That might be at the moment. As I turned to leave, Barbara called my name one more time. Emma? There's something else you should know. Something I need to tell you before you hear it from someone else. I paused at the door, a flicker of apprehension running through me. What is it? After I had Lily tested, I made another mistake. Barbara's voice faltered. I told Vanessa about it, about my suspicions. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You told Noah's ex-girlfriend that you suspected Lily wasn't his child? Barbara nodded, shame evident in her expression. Vanessa and I have remained in contact over the years. She's the daughter of one of my oldest friends. When the test results came back confirming Noah was Lily's father, Vanessa suggested I destroy the evidence and never mention it to anyone. She thought. She thought it might still create enough doubt to cause problems between you and Noah. Anger flared hot and sudden in my chest. And did you consider taking her advice? For a moment, yes, Barbara admitted, but I couldn't go through with it. Whatever my faults, and they are many, I couldn't deliberately try to destroy my son's marriage based on what I knew to be a lie. Does Noah know about this? About you discussing our family with his ex? No. And I understand if you want to tell him. You have every right to. Barbara looked directly at me, her expression somber. I'm telling you this now because I'm done with secrets, with half-truths, with manipulations. If we're to have any chance of rebuilding this family, it has to be on a foundation of complete honesty. I stood frozen, trying to process this new information. The idea of Barbara and Vanessa conspiring behind our backs, discussing Lily's paternity, strategizing ways to undermine my marriage, it made my earlier anger seem like a mere spark compared to the blaze now threatening to consume me. I need time to think about this, I managed finally, about what it means, about whether to tell Noah. I understand, Barbara said quietly, and I'll accept whatever you decide. Just know that I regret it deeply, along with everything else. I left without another word, needing space, air, distance from the hospital room and its confessions. In the corridor, I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing, to process the whiplash of emotions, from cautious forgiveness to renewed betrayal in the span of a single conversation. Noah found me there minutes later, concern etched across his features. Em? What happened? You look pale. I shook my head, not ready to share Barbara's latest revelation. It was intense. Your mother apologized, seemed sincere. But healing takes time, I replied, deciding in that moment to keep Barbara's confession about Vanessa to myself, at least for now. Noah was already dealing with so much. His mother's health crisis, the upcoming DNA test with Gabriel, the unraveling of his family's carefully constructed narrative. Adding this new betrayal felt unnecessarily cruel, particularly when Barbara had chosen to be honest about it herself. Did she say anything else? Noah pressed, sensing my hesitation. She mentioned that your father has agreed to take the DNA test with Gabriel, I offered instead. That they talked last night and he's coming to terms with the possibility. Noah's eyebrows rose in surprise. Really? Dad didn't mention that. Maybe he was waiting for the right moment. It's a big step for him. Noah nodded slowly, processing this development. So we're really doing this, all of us, finding out the truth after 35 years. It seems that way, I agreed, taking his hand. How do you feel about that? He considered the question carefully. Relieved, I think, that we're finally facing reality instead of hiding from it. That Dad is willing to acknowledge Gabriel might be his son, that even Mom seems to be accepting the possibility. It's progress, I affirmed, more than I expected, honestly. Me too. Noah squeezed my fingers, his gaze searching my face. Are you okay? Really? I managed a small smile, pushing aside my turmoil about Barbara's revelation. I will be. We all will be, eventually. We returned to the waiting room to find Thomas sitting with a social worker discussing follow-up care for Barbara after her discharge. She'll need to take things easy for a while, the woman was explaining. Minimize stress, attend cardiac rehabilitation, consider therapy to address the underlying anxiety issues. Of course, Thomas agreed readily. Whatever she needs. The social worker noticed our arrival and stood, introducing herself. You must be Barbara's son and daughter-in-law. I'm Diane from Patient Services. I was just explaining to Mr. Mitchell that your mother will need significant support during her recovery. We understand, Noah said, his tone neutral. Diane glanced between the three of us, clearly sensing the complicated dynamics at play. Family support is crucial in these situations, but I should mention that we also offer family counseling services that might be beneficial, given the stress everyone is under. Thomas looked up, something like hope flickering in his eyes. That might be helpful, he said, glancing at Noah. If you're open to it, son. Noah hesitated, then nodded slowly. Maybe, after things settle a bit. It was a small concession, but I felt its significance. A door being kept ajar rather than slammed shut. A possibility of reconciliation, however distant. As we prepared to leave the hospital, Thomas walked us to the parking lot, the morning sun now high overhead. Thank you both for coming, he said, his voice rough with emotion. It means more than you know. How long will she be here? Noah asked. Another day or two, they think. Then home, with strict orders to rest and avoid stress. Noah nodded, awkwardness settling between them. I should check on Lily, but keep us updated, okay? Of course. Thomas hesitated, then added, about Friday. The DNA test with Gabriel. I've decided to participate. Mom mentioned that, Noah acknowledged. What changed your mind? Thomas's gaze drifted toward the hospital building where his wife lay recovering. Nearly losing Barbara made me realize how quickly everything can change. How the things we think are so important, appearances, reputations, family legacies, mean nothing in the face of mortality. He looked back at Noah, his expression resolved. I've spent 35 years running from a possibility that might actually be a gift. A son I never knew. A chance to make amends, however late. It won't be simple, Noah warned. If Gabriel is your son, nothing worth doing ever is, Thomas interrupted gently. But it's time, Noah. Past time. As we drove away, Noah was quieter than usual, processing the morning's events. I reached across the console to place my hand on his knee, offering silent support. It's strange, he said finally as we approached Rachel's neighborhood. A week ago, I was so angry I could barely speak to them. Now Mom's in the hospital, Dad's agreeing to acknowledge Gabriel, and everything feels different. Not fixed, not even close, but shifting, I supplied. Like the ground is moving under our feet, but we don't know yet where it will settle. Exactly. He glanced at me, gratitude in his eyes. Thank you for being there today. I couldn't have faced them alone. You'll never have to, I promised, even as Barbara's revelation about Vanessa weighed on my conscience. Should I tell him? Did he deserve to know everything, or would this additional betrayal only cause more pain when he was finally beginning to process the rest? As we pulled up to Rachel's house, I made a decision. The truth, all of it, would come out eventually. But today, with his mother in the hospital and so many other emotional revelations still fresh, was not that day. Sometimes love meant protecting those we cared about, even from truths they deserved to know. For now, I would carry this burden alone, giving Noah the space to heal from the wounds already inflicted before presenting him with new ones. Rachel opened her front door as we approached, Lily balanced on her hip. At the sight of us, our daughter broke into a wide, gummy smile that melted away the tension of the morning. There's my girl, Noah murmured, taking her from Rachel with grateful arms. He held Lily close, breathing in the baby-sweet scent of her hair, finding in her innocent presence an anchor in the storm of family revelations. Watching them together, father and daughter, their connection undeniable in the curve of their smiles, the shape of their eyes, I felt a renewed determination to protect what mattered most. Whatever came next with Barbara, with Thomas, with Gabriel and the DNA tests that would officially connect or separate them, this was the truth that couldn't be shaken. The family we had built together, the love that bound us, the truth we were brave enough to face. As we thanked Rachel and headed home, Lily babbling happily in her car seat, I found myself surprisingly optimistic about the days ahead. Not because I expected them to be easy. They would undoubtedly bring new challenges, new revelations, new hurts to overcome. But because for the first time since finding that DNA test envelope, it felt like we were moving forward rather than merely reacting. Like we were writing our own story rather than being trapped in someone else's carefully constructed narrative. The road ahead would be difficult, the conversations painful, the healing slow. But as I watched Noah adjust the rearview mirror to catch a glimpse of Lily's smiling face, I knew with absolute certainty that we would navigate it together, stronger for having faced the truth, however uncomfortable, however inconvenient, however life-changing it might be. Friday arrived with a weight of anticipation that seemed to press down on our entire household. Noah had been quiet all week, alternating between checking on his mother at home and preparing mentally for the DNA test that would officially confirm what we already believed, that Gabriel Diaz was his half-brother and Thomas's son. Barbara had been discharged from the hospital on Tuesday with strict orders to rest and avoid stress, which seemed almost laughable given the circumstances. How could any of us avoid stress when the very foundation of the Mitchell family was shifting beneath our feet? I dressed Lily in a soft yellow outfit that morning, somehow feeling it important that she look her best, though she wouldn't be accompanying us to the lab. Rachel had agreed to watch her again, understanding the delicate nature of the day's events. Nervous? I asked Noah as he stood before our bedroom mirror, buttoning a crisp blue shirt I hadn't seen him wear in months. Terrified, he admitted, meeting my eyes in the reflection. Not about the test results. I already know what they'll say. But about facing Dad and Gabriel together in the same room, about what comes after. I moved behind him, wrapping my arms around his waist and resting my cheek against his back. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out, one step at a time. He turned in my embrace, cupping my face in his hands. What would I do without you, Em? Fortunately, you'll never have to find out, I replied, rising on tiptoes to kiss him softly. Now finish getting ready. We're meeting Gabriel at the lab in an hour. The drive to Sunrise Labs was tense and quiet. Noah had spoken with Thomas the previous evening, confirming the arrangements. They would meet at the lab at 10 a.m., where Marcus Wilson would personally oversee the testing process. Barbara had wanted to come, but her doctors advised against it, insisting she needed at least another week of rest before engaging in potentially stressful situations. Maybe that's for the best, Noah had said after hanging up with his father. This is already complicated enough without Mom there. I had silently agreed, though part of me wondered if Barbara's absence was truly medical necessity or convenient avoidance. Despite her hospital bed epiphanies, I wasn't entirely convinced she was ready to face the reality of her husband's other son in the flesh. Gabriel was already waiting when we arrived at the lab, sitting in a plastic chair in the sterile waiting area, looking oddly nervous and composed at once. He stood as we entered, his resemblance to Noah striking even in this clinical lighting. Same strong jawline, same expressive dark eyes, same way of holding himself with shoulders slightly back as if bracing for impact. Noah, he greeted, extending his hand. Good to see you again. His gaze shifted to me with a warm smile. You must be Emma. Noah's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope, I replied, taking his offered hand. His grip was firm but gentle, much like Noah's. It's nice to finally meet you. More than nice, Gabriel said sincerely. I've been hoping for this day for a long time, though I'll admit I never imagined it quite like this. Noah glanced around the waiting room. Dad's not here yet? As if summoned by the mention, the clinic door swung open and Thomas Mitchell entered. He'd aged noticeably in the week since Barbara's hospitalization. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes, a slight stoop to the shoulders that had always been military straight. But his gaze was clear and direct as it moved from Noah to Gabriel, lingering on the younger man's face with undisguised emotion. "Gabriel," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, You look so much like her." The simple acknowledgement, the first time Thomas had openly admitted seeing Eleanor and Gabriel, seemed to catch everyone off guard, particularly Gabriel himself, whose composed expression faltered momentarily. "My mother kept a picture of you," he replied after gathering himself, "on her nightstand until the day she died, even after she married my stepfather. She never let me forget where I came from." Thomas flinched slightly, the words clearly striking a nerve. "I'm sorry," he said, though whether he was apologizing for the past or for Gabriel's loss wasn't entirely clear. The awkward tableau was broken by the appearance of Marcus Wilson, his professional demeanor a welcome buffer against the emotional undercurrents swirling in the small waiting room. "Good morning," he greeted, eyes moving between the four of us. "I have a private room prepared for the testing process, if you'll follow me." We were led to a conference room that had been converted for the occasion, clinical supplies arranged neatly on a central table, consent forms stacked in precise piles. Marcus gestured for us to sit, his manner gentle but efficient. "Before we begin, I want to make sure everyone understands what will happen today," he explained. "We'll be collecting DNA samples via cheek swabs from Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Diaz. The analysis process typically takes several business days, but given the unique circumstances, I've arranged for expedited processing. We should have results by Monday morning." "That fast?" Gabriel asked, surprise evident in his voice. Marcus nodded. "Modern DNA testing has advanced significantly, and as I mentioned to Mrs. Reynolds previously, our lab is implementing new protocols to ensure the highest standards of consent and verification." He glanced at me, a subtle acknowledgement of our shared understanding. "What exactly will the results tell us?" Thomas asked, his hands clasped tightly on the table before him. "The test will determine the probability of paternity with extremely high accuracy," Marcus explained. "If you are indeed Gabriel's biological father, the probability indicator will be 99% or higher. There's essentially no room for error or misinterpretation." Thomas nodded, absorbing this information with a grim resignation. "And the results will come directly to us?" "I'll call each of you personally," Marcus assured him. "Nothing will be mailed to your homes or shared with anyone other than the individuals in this room." Legal consent forms were distributed, signed, and witnessed. The actual collection process was surprisingly quick and anticlimactic, sterile swabs rubbed against inner cheeks, sealed in labeled containers, documentation completed. In less than 20 minutes, the technical aspects were finished, leaving the four of us sitting around the table in a strange limbo, the weight of what we'd just set in motion hanging heavy in the air. "Well," Marcus said, gathering the samples, "that concludes the official process. Do you have any questions before I go?" We looked at each other, each seemingly waiting for someone else to speak. Finally, Noah broke the silence. "What happens after we get the results? Legally, I mean. If they confirm what we already suspect?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "That's entirely up to you as a family. The test results themselves have no automatic legal implications. They don't create or negate inheritance rights, don't establish legal relationships beyond confirming biological connection. What you choose to do with the information is a personal decision." "Thank you," Thomas said quietly, "for your discretion, for handling this professionally." "Of course," Marcus nodded respectfully. "I'll leave you to talk privately. Just let the receptionist know when you're finished with the room." After he left, silence descended again, thick and uncomfortable. Gabriel studied his hands. Noah watched Gabriel. Thomas stared at a point. on the wall just above his possible son's head, and I observed them all, struck by the physical similarities that seemed more pronounced with each passing minute. "So," Gabriel said finally, breaking the tension, "I guess we wait until Monday." "Yes," Thomas agreed, then hesitated before adding, "But perhaps we don't need to wait to begin, getting to know each other." The suggestion hung in the air, unexpected and tentative. Gabriel's eyebrows rose slightly. "What did you have in mind?" Thomas glanced at Noah, seemingly seeking support. "I thought perhaps we might have lunch, the four of us. Nothing formal, just a chance to talk outside these clinical walls." Noah looked surprised but nodded slowly. "I'd like that, if Gabriel's willing." Gabriel studied Thomas's face, searching for something, sincerity perhaps, or traces of his own features reflected back at him. "There's a cafe across the street," he suggested finally. "They make decent sandwiches." It wasn't enthusiastic. Acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. Thomas seized the opening with visible relief. "Perfect, shall we?" The cafe was busy with the Friday lunch crowd, but we managed to find a table in a quiet corner, away from the main hubbub. Ordering food created a momentary distraction, something concrete and normal to focus on amidst the surreal circumstances. "Noah said you teach music," Thomas ventured once the server had left with our orders. Gabriel nodded, turning his water glass slowly between his fingers. 15 years now, high school level. I also give private piano lessons on weekends." Piano was Eleanor's instrument, Thomas said softly, the memory clearly surfacing unbidden. She played beautifully, classical mostly, but she could improvise. Jazz like you wouldn't believe. Gabriel's expression softened, hungry for these small details about the mother he'd lost. "She taught me to play when I was 5, said I had her hands." Thomas glanced down at Gabriel's fingers, long and elegant, currently wrapped around his water glass. "You do," he confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. "Exactly her hands." Noah watched this exchange with a complex expression, part fascination, part pain, part wonder. "Did she ever talk about what happened between you two?" he asked his father carefully. Thomas closed his eyes briefly, gathering himself. "I imagine she told Gabriel her side of things." "Some," Gabriel acknowledged. "That you met at the country club where she worked, that your families didn't approve, that when she told you about the pregnancy, you initially promised to stand by her, then disappeared instead." Thomas flinched visibly at this characterization. It wasn't quite that simple." "It never is," Gabriel replied, not unkindly. "Mom didn't paint you as a villain if that's what you're worried about. She said you were young, caught between love and duty, that your family had tremendous influence over you." "They did," Thomas admitted, "but that's no excuse for my choices. I should have been stronger, should have fought for her, for you." "Why didn't you?" The question came from Noah, his tone genuinely curious rather than accusatory. "You've always taught me about Mitchell family values, about doing the right thing no matter the cost. Was abandoning Eleanor and her baby really the right thing?" Thomas looked at his son, his acknowledged son, the one he'd raised, with naked regret. "No, it was the expected thing, the convenient thing, the thing that preserved family harmony, and business connections and social standing. But right? No. It was the greatest moral failure of my life, and I've been paying for it every day since." "How?" Gabriel asked, leaning forward slightly. "How have you been paying for it?" Thomas met his gaze directly for perhaps the first time. "By living a half-life. By knowing I betrayed the woman I truly loved, and the child we created together. By watching my parents go to their graves, never knowing they had another grandson. By building a marriage on a foundation of obligation rather than love." The raw honesty of this confession seemed to stun us all into silence. Our food arrived, creating another welcome distraction, though none of us seemed particularly hungry anymore. "Mom never stopped loving you," Gabriel said finally, poking at his sandwich without eating it. "Even after marrying Richard, my stepfather, she kept your picture, told me stories, made sure I knew who you were, what you looked like." "She married?" Thomas asked, his voice carefully neutral. Gabriel nodded. "When I was 7. Richard was good to us. Adopted me legally, gave me his name, Diaz. Treated me like his own son. But Mom made sure I knew about you too. Said I deserved to understand my heritage, where I came from." "She was a remarkable woman," Thomas murmured. "Stronger than I ever was." "Why did you refuse to see me 2 years ago?" Gabriel asked abruptly, the question clearly having weighed on him. "When I first approached you at your office, you must have known looking at me that I could be your son. Mom showed you pictures of me as a baby, sent school photos every year to the P.O. box you'd set up." Thomas stared at him in genuine shock. "What P.O. box? What pictures?" "Eleanor never contacted me after she left town. The agreement my parents arranged with her specifically prohibited any communication." Gabriel frowned, confusion evident. "That's not possible. Mom had a whole box of correspondence, birthday cards you sent me, notes to her, even a few small gifts over the years." "I never sent anything," Thomas insisted, looking increasingly disturbed. "I didn't even know where she'd gone after she left Oakwood." Noah and I exchanged glances, both recognizing the implications simultaneously. "Mom," Noah said quietly, "Mom must have intercepted any attempts at contact. She would have had the means, the motivation." Thomas paled, the possibility clearly having never occurred to him. Barbara wouldn't. She couldn't have. "Wouldn't she?" Noah challenged gently. "She had Lily tested behind our backs, 35 years after the fact. How far would she have gone to protect her new marriage from Eleanor's intrusion?" Gabriel was watching this exchange with growing comprehension. "You really didn't know," he said to Thomas, a statement rather than a question. "All these years, you thought she'd just disappeared with the settlement money, never to be heard from again." "That's what I was told," Thomas confirmed, his voice hollow. "That she'd signed the agreement, taken the payment, and wanted nothing more to do with me or the Mitchell family. I tried to find her, about a year after marrying Barbara, but the private investigator I hired came back empty-handed. Said she'd moved west somewhere, left no forwarding address. She was in Riverside," Gabriel said. "Less than 50 miles. From here. For 35 years, raising your son practically in your backyard." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air between us. Thomas looked physically ill, as if decades of assumptions and rationalizations were crumbling. Simultaneously, "The letters," he said suddenly, turning to Noah. "In your mother's desk. The locked drawer she never let anyone touch. I always assumed it was just her personal correspondence, family mementos. But what if? You think she kept Eleanor's letters?" Noah asked, following his father's train of thought. "The ones intended for you?" "It would explain a lot," Thomas admitted. Barbara's obsession with family image, her paranoia about history repeating itself, her reaction when Gabriel appeared 2 years ago. He turned back to Gabriel, his expression stricken. "I need you to know that if I'd received any communication from your mother, if I'd known where you were, if I'd had any real confirmation that you were my son—" "You'd have what?" Gabriel interrupted, his composure finally cracking. "Reached out? Acknowledged me? Defied your perfect wife and her Mitchell family standards?" He shook his head, a lifetime of abandonment fueling his skepticism. "You had a chance 2 years. Ego when I came to you directly, DNA test or not, and you chose to send me away. To threaten legal action if I persisted." "I panicked," Thomas admitted, his voice breaking. After decades of believing Eleanor had taken the money and disappeared. By choice. Suddenly there you were, looking so much like her, it took my breath away. I wasn't prepared. I made the wrong choice. Again. Noah reached across the table, placing a steadying hand on his father's arm. Dad, breathe. We don't know for certain what happened with Eleanor's letters. We need to ask Mom directly, see what she says. She's still recovering, Thomas protested weakly. The doctor said to avoid stressful conversations. This can't wait, Noah countered firmly. If Mom intercepted communication between you and Eleanor for decades, if she deliberately kept you from knowing your own son, that's beyond anything we've discussed so far. You deserve the truth, Dad. Gabriel deserves the truth. Thomas looked between his two sons, one raised in privilege under his roof, one raised in relative obscurity just miles away, and something seemed to solidify in his expression, a resolve I hadn't seen before, a straightening of the shoulders that had been stooped with resignation. You're right, he said, meeting Gabriel's gaze directly. No more delays, no more excuses. We go to Barbara today together and get answers. Gabriel hesitated, clearly caught off guard by this sudden decisiveness. All of us? Now? Unless you'd rather wait for the DNA results, Thomas offered, understanding the hesitation. I'd completely understand if you— No, Gabriel interrupted, his own resolve matching Thomas's. I've waited 35 years for answers. I'm not waiting 3 more days. The decision made, we paid for our mostly uneaten lunch and headed out to the parking lot. It was agreed that Noah and I would follow Thomas in our car, with Gabriel riding with Thomas to allow them time to talk privately during the drive. Are you sure about this? I asked Noah as we watched the two men climb into Thomas's sedan. Your mother's still recovering. Finding out that we know she intercepted Eleanor's letters, if that's indeed what happened, could be a significant shock. We can't protect her from the consequences of her own actions anymore, Em, Noah replied, starting our car. Not when those actions caused so much pain to so many people. Dad deserves to know what really happened. Gabriel deserves to know why his attempts to reach his father failed. And Mom. Mom needs to finally face the reality of what she's done. I couldn't argue with his logic, though I worried about the confrontation ahead. Barbara Mitchell had spent decades crafting and maintaining a specific family narrative. Having that narrative not just questioned, but potentially demolished in one afternoon might well trigger another cardiac event. Let's be careful, I urged as we followed Thomas's car through the Oakwood streets toward the Mitchell family home. Measured. This doesn't have to be an accusation as much as a quest for understanding. Noah reached across the console, squeezing my hand briefly. Always the voice of reason. I'll try to remember that once we're there. The Mitchell house looked exactly as it always had. Pristine white colonial, perfectly manicured lawn, brass knocker gleaming on the dark green front door. Yet knowing what we now knew, what we suspected, it felt like a stage set rather than a home. A carefully constructed backdrop for a performance that had run for over 3 decades. Thomas led us inside, calling out to Barbara as we entered. We're home, dear, and we've brought visitors. Barbara appeared in the living room doorway, wrapped in a silk dressing gown despite the afternoon hour, her hair carefully styled, though her face remained pale and drawn from her hospital stay. Her expression shifted rapidly from welcome to confusion to alarm as she registered Gabriel's presence among us. Thomas? Her voice held a note of panic. What's happening? Why is he here? We've just come from the lab, Thomas explained, calmly, gesturing for us all to enter the living room. The DNA testing is complete. We'll have results Monday, but in the meantime, we've been talking, learning about each other, and some questions have arisen that only you can answer. Barbara sank onto the sofa, her hand fluttering to her chest in a gesture that immediately raised my concern. Questions? What questions? Thomas, The doctor said I shouldn't. I know what the doctor said, Thomas interrupted gently but firmly. But some truths can't wait anymore, Barbara. Not after 35 years. Gabriel remained standing while the rest of us seated ourselves. His posture tense, eyes fixed on the woman who may have systematically kept him from his father's knowledge all his life. Mrs. Mitchell, he began, his voice carefully controlled. My mother sent letters to Thomas over the years. Birthday cards for me. Photos. Updates on our lives. Did those communications ever reach him? Barbara's face drained of what little color it had. Her gaze darted to Thomas, to Noah, to me, searching for an ally and finding none. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Barbara. Thomas leaned forward, his tone gentle despite the gravity of the moment. Please, no more lies, no more evasions. Did you intercept letters from Eleanor? Did you keep them from me all these years? She looked at her husband of 30 years, the man whose life she had carefully managed and molded to fit her vision of what a Mitchell family should be, and something seemed to break behind her eyes. I was protecting us, she whispered. Protecting our marriage, our family. She was never going to stop, Thomas. Never going to let you forget her or that child. I couldn't. I couldn't compete with a ghost, with might-have-beens. I needed her gone completely. The admission hung in the air, devastating in its implications. Thomas closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the blow. How did you do it? How did you even know she was trying to contact me? The P.O. box, Barbara admitted, her voice growing stronger as the secret finally emerged. You weren't the one who set it up after she left. I was. Through the family attorney. Made sure all communication from her would go there instead of to our home. I checked it regularly for years, intercepted everything. The letters, the cards, the photos. I kept them all. Where? Thomas demanded, anger finally coloring his tone. Where are they? Barbara hesitated, then gestured weakly toward a cherrywood secretary desk in the corner of the room. The bottom drawer, behind the false panel. The key is in my jewelry box, the small silver one. Noah moved to retrieve the key while Thomas continued questioning his wife. All these years I believed she had taken the money and disappeared. That she wanted nothing more to do with me. That she'd never tried to contact me about her child, our child. She took the money, Barbara insisted, a flash of her old defensiveness surfacing. She cashed the check my family's lawyer gave her. She agreed to the terms. She was 18 years old, Thomas erupted, his control finally slipping. Pregnant, abandoned by the man she loved, confronted by hostile lawyers representing powerful families. What choice did she have? Gabriel watched this exchange with a strange detachment, as if observing characters in a play rather than real people whose actions had shaped his entire existence. She kept her part of the bargain, he said quietly. Never approached Thomas. Directly. Never created a scandal. Never demanded more money. She only wanted him to know I existed, to know we were okay. Noah returned with the key, moving to the secretary desk and locating the hidden compartment Barbara had described. Inside was a large, flat box, aged but carefully preserved. He brought it to the coffee table, setting it between Thomas and Barbara like a physical manifestation of the lies that had defined their marriage. Open it, Barbara said, her voice resigned. It's time. Thomas lifted the lid with trembling hands. Inside, neatly organized and preserved in clear plastic sleeves, were dozens of letters, cards, and photographs spanning decades. Eleanor as a young mother holding infant Gabriel. Gabriel's school pictures year by year, handwritten notes in a flowing feminine script, birthday cards signed, Your son, Gabriel, in progressively more mature handwriting. Oh my God, Thomas whispered, lifting out a small baby shoe preserved in tissue paper. A note attached read simply, His first step, Thought you might want a memento. Mine. Gabriel moved closer, peering at the collection with undisguised emotion. She told me she sent these. I never knew if you received them, if you cared, if you even opened them. I never saw any of this, Thomas said, his voice breaking. Not one letter, not one photo. He turned to Barbara, 30 years of betrayal evident in his expression. How could you? How could you keep this from me? I did what I thought was necessary, Barbara replied, tears tracking silently down her cheeks. I was 23, Thomas, about to marry a man I knew loved someone else, someone who had given him a child I wasn't sure I could ever provide. What would you have done in my position? Not this, he said simply. Never this. Noah had been silently examining the contents of the box, lifting out letters and photographs with careful hands. There's something else, he said, extracting a thick envelope from the bottom of the box. More recent, postmarked 2 years ago. Gabriel straightened, recognition dawning. After Mom died, I wrote to Thomas, sent it to the same P.O. box she'd always used, explained who I was, included recent photos, asked if we could meet. I never received it, Thomas said, casting an accusing glance at his wife. Barbara's defiance crumbled entirely. By then it was habit, she admitted. 33 years of protecting our family from this very moment. I couldn't stop, couldn't let it all fall apart after so long. So, when Gabriel appeared at my office 2 years ago, seemingly out of nowhere, I knew exactly who he was. Barbara finished for him. I'd watched him grow up through those photos, seen Eleanor in his features, and yes, seen you too, Thomas. There was never any doubt in my mind. The magnitude of the deception was staggering, not just intercepting letters over the years, but actively manipulating the narrative when Gabriel finally sought direct contact, knowing full well who he was and what he represented. Did you tell Thomas to reject me? Gabriel asked, addressing Barbara directly for the first time. To threaten legal action if I persisted? Barbara couldn't meet his eyes. I suggested that entertaining your claim would only lead to pain for everyone involved, that acknowledging you after all this time would devastate our family, our standing in the community, Noah's inheritance. My inheritance? Noah interjected, incredulous. You used me as an excuse to deny Gabriel his father? I was protecting what we'd built, Barbara insisted, though her justification sounded hollow even to her own ears. The life we'd created together. The Mitchell family legacy. A legacy built on lies, Thomas said quietly. On deliberate cruelty. On denying a father knowledge of his son. On denying a son his rightful place in our family. The words hung in the air, definitive and damning. Barbara seemed to shrink further into herself, all pretense of justification abandoned. What happens now? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Thomas looked at Gabriel, then at Noah, his expression pained but resolute. Now we begin again, with truth this time, however difficult, with acknowledgement of past wrongs, with attempts at amends, however inadequate they may be. He turned. To Gabriel, years of unspoken fatherhood in his gaze. If you'll allow it, I'd like the chance to know my son. Properly, openly, without shame or secrecy. It's 35 years too late, I know that, but it's not too late, Gabriel interrupted, his own rigid control finally softening. I wouldn't be here if I thought it was too late. The simple statement seemed to release something in Thomas, a tension, a fear, a guilt he'd carried for decades. He reached tentatively toward Gabriel, not quite touching him but bridging the space between them. Thank you, he said simply, for that grace I don't deserve. Barbara watched this exchange with visible distress, the carefully constructed world she'd maintained for 3 decades crumbling before her eyes. And me? She asked, her voice barely audible. What happens to me in this new truth-based family? Thomas turned to his wife, his expression complicated. Anger and betrayal tempered with the weight of 30 shared years, of a son raised together, of a life built side by side despite its flawed foundation. That depends, he said finally, on whether you're truly ready to live without the lies, the manipulations, the control. On whether you can accept Gabriel not as a threat to our family, but as a part of it. On whether you're willing to make amends, not just with words, but with actions, day after day, year after year. Barbara looked around the room at the faces watching her. Thomas's pained determination, Gabriel's cautious hope, Noah's protective concern, my silent observation. And something seemed to shift in her expression. A recognition, perhaps, that the carefully constructed performance of her life had reached its final act. I don't know if I can, she admitted finally, brutal honesty replacing a lifetime of calculated presentation. I don't know if I'm capable of being that person, but I'm willing to try. For you, Thomas, for Noah, for this family I've spent my life trying to protect, even when I was the one damaging it most. It wasn't a perfect response, not a fairy tale transformation or a tearful embrace of immediate reconciliation. But it was honest, perhaps the first truly honest thing Barbara had offered in decades. And in that honesty, imperfect and painful as it was, I saw the first tentative step toward healing for this fractured family. As I watched the four of them, Thomas and Barbara, Noah and Gabriel, navigating this seismic shift in their shared reality, I thought about Lily waiting at Rachel's house, blissfully unaware of the family drama unfolding, the secrets being exposed, the new connections being forged. One day we would tell her this story, about the grandmother who tested her DNA in secret, about the uncle she gained through truth's painful emergence, about the family rebuilt on foundations of honesty, rather than appearance. It would be a complicated story, not easily reduced to simple lessons or morals. But it would be real, messy, painful, hopeful, human. And in that reality, however difficult, lay a kind of authenticity that Barbara's carefully curated family narrative had never achieved in 30 years of meticulous maintenance. Thomas was gathering the letters and photographs, handling each one with reverent care. I'd like to read these, he said to Gabriel. All of them. To know what I missed, what your mother wanted me to know. Gabriel nodded, emotion evident despite his controlled expression. She would have wanted that. She kept copies of most of them. I can show you those too, if you'd like. I would, Thomas said simply. Very much. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting long shadows across the Mitchell living room, we sat together in this new, uncomfortable truth. Not reconciled, not healed, but no longer buried in decades of deliberate deception. It was a beginning of sorts, painful but necessary, the first tentative steps toward whatever family they might yet become. 3 months after the confrontation in the Mitchell living room, I stood in our kitchen watching Noah and Gabriel work together to assemble Lily's first birthday cake. They moved around each other with an easy familiarity that belied the brevity of their relationship, occasionally bumping shoulders or exchanging good-natured jabs about proper frosting technique. Through the window, I could see Thomas in the backyard, carefully hanging a banner between 2 oak trees while Rachel supervised from below, Lily balanced on her hip. You're putting too much frosting on that side, Noah critiqued, eyeing the lopsided confection with mock seriousness. Gabriel responded by deliberately adding another dollop to the already overloaded edge. The birthday girl prefers more frosting. We've discussed it extensively. She's one, Gabe. Her culinary opinions currently consist of either throwing food on the floor or smashing it into her hair. Exactly why she needs a proper introduction to cake aesthetics. This is formative stuff. I smiled, watching their banter, struck by how natural their brotherhood had become. The DNA results had arrived as expected, 99. 98% probability that Thomas was Gabriel's father, but by then, it had felt like a mere formality. The truth had been evident in their shared mannerisms, in the identical way they furrowed their brows when concentrating, in the similar timbre of their laughs. "Need any help?" I offered, approaching the frosting station. "Nope," Noah replied, slipping an arm around my waist and pressing a quick, sugar-sweet kiss to my temple. "We've got this under control. Very professional operation happening here." "Clearly," I agreed, eyeing the kitchen disaster zone with amusement. "Where's Barbara? I thought she was bringing the ice cream." A slight tension rippled through the room at the mention of Barbara's name. Despite 3 months of family therapy, careful conversations, and genuine efforts at reconciliation, her relationship with everyone remained the most fragile, the most carefully navigated. "She called earlier," Noah said, his tone deliberately neutral. "Said she needed to pick up a few extra things for the party. She should be here soon." Gabriel concentrated on the cake, his expression giving away nothing. His relationship with Barbara was understandably the most complicated. While he had shown remarkable grace toward Thomas, accepting his father's belated presence in his life, with cautious optimism, Barbara remained a painful reminder of why he'd grown up without that presence to begin with. "She's trying," I offered quietly, more to Gabriel than to Noah, in her own way. Gabriel glanced up, a small smile softening his features. "I know, and I'm trying too. It's just complicated," I finished for him. "No one expects instant family harmony, Gabe, especially given the circumstances." He nodded, grateful for the understanding. The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. "That's probably her now," Noah said, wiping his hands on a dishcloth. "I'll get it." Left alone. With Gabriel, I moved to help him with the final touches on the cake. "Lily's going to love it," I assured him. "She adores you, you know. Uncle Gabe is quickly becoming her favorite person." His smile widened, genuine pleasure replacing the earlier tension. "The feeling is mutual. I've never been around babies. Much before, but she's pretty special." "She is," I agreed, watching him carefully place a final candle. "Have you thought more about what Thomas suggested? About changing your surname?" The question had been hovering in the air for weeks, ever since Thomas had tentatively raised the possibility of Gabriel taking the Mitchell name if he wanted to. It wasn't about legacy or inheritance, Thomas had been careful to explain, but about acknowledgement, about making official what should have been recognized 35 years earlier. "I'm still thinking," Gabriel admitted. "Richard Diaz was a good father to me. Taking his name was a gift when I was 7, a sense of belonging when I needed it most. Changing it now feels complicated." He adjusted a sugar flour on the cakes, surface with careful precision. "But being acknowledged as a Mitchell after all this time, there's a certain completion in that too. There's no rush," I reminded him. "No right or wrong answer. I know." He straightened, admiring their handiwork. "Perfect timing. Here comes the birthday girl." Rachel entered with Lily, who squealed at the sight of her uncle, pudgy arms reaching for him immediately. Gabriel lifted her with practiced ease, settling her on his hip in a mirror of how Rachel had been holding her moments before. "Thomas says the yard is officially party-ready," Rachel reported, "though he's arguing with the balloon arrangements. Apparently they're not symmetrically balanced. Or something equally ridiculous." "That sounds like Dad," Noah said, returning to the kitchen with a tight smile that immediately alerted me to tension. "Mom's here," he added unnecessarily, bringing in some things from the car. Barbara appeared in the doorway moments later, arms laden with bags from premium toy stores, her appearance as meticulously managed as ever despite the casual setting. "Sorry I'm late," she offered, her gaze moving nervously around the room before settling on Lily. "Oh, don't you look pretty today? Grandma brought you some special birthday presents." The slight emphasis on Grandma wasn't lost on any of us. Since the revelations about her deception, Barbara had doubled down on her grandmother role with Lily, as if proving her commitment to this generation of the family might somehow atone for her sins against the previous one. That's a lot of gifts, Mom, Noah observed, eyeing the multiple bags with concern. We'd specifically asked for minimal presents, wanting to establish reasonable birthday expectations from the start. It's her first birthday, Barbara defended, setting the bags on a counter. A girl only turns one once. Gabriel shifted Lily in his arms, his discomfort evident. These moments, when Barbara reverted to her old patterns of excessive gestures and subtle boundary pushing, remained the most challenging for everyone involved. We should probably head outside, I suggested, attempting to diffuse the tension. Guests will be arriving soon. The small gathering was deliberately intimate, just family and a few close friends with children Lily's age. We'd decided against inviting extended family, many of whom were still processing the news about Gabriel and the circumstances of his recognition as Thomas's son. Oakwood society thrived on gossip, and the Mitchell family drama had provided months of whispered conversations and shocked speculations. As we moved to the backyard, I noticed Barbara hesitate, falling into step beside me while the others went ahead. "Emma," she said softly, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Could I speak with you for a moment, before everyone arrives?" I nodded, allowing her to guide me to a quiet corner of the patio, away from where Thomas was now showing Lily how the sprinkler system worked, much to her delight. "I wanted to give you this," Barbara said, pressing a small box into my hands. "Before the party begins, it's not for Lily. It's for you." Surprised, I opened the velvet case to find a delicate silver bracelet nestled inside, antique, in design with intricate engravings. "Barbara, it's beautiful, but—" "It was my grandmother's," she interrupted. "Elizabeth Mitchell. The only woman in the family who ever truly saw me, I think. Who understood me." She swallowed hard, visibly emotional. "When I was about your age, struggling with the early years of marriage, with the pressure to be the perfect Mitchell wife, she took me aside and gave me this bracelet. Told me that true family isn't about appearances or expectations, or maintaining some artificial standard. It's about seeing each other clearly and loving anyway." Barbara's voice caught. I didn't listen. I didn't understand then what she was trying to tell me. I stared at the bracelet, unsure how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability. Barbara had made efforts over the past 3 months, attending therapy, respecting our boundaries with Lily, attempting to acknowledge Gabriel, but this felt different, more genuine, less calculated. "Why give this to me?" I asked finally. "Because you were right," she said simply. "That day in the hospital, when you said true family is built on honesty, not performance. You understood what took me 30 years to learn, and what I'm still struggling to implement." She gestured toward Gabriel, who was now helping Thomas adjust the banner. "You accepted him immediately, saw him as family without reservation, despite everything I'd done." "He is family," I said. "DNA confirmed what was already obvious to anyone looking. He's Noah's brother, Lily's uncle, Thomas's son." "And what is he to me?" Barbara asked quietly, the question seeming to surprise even herself. "The living embodiment of my greatest shame? The proof of my decades of deception? Or could he be family too, somehow? Despite everything?" I considered her question carefully, recognizing its importance. "That depends on you, Barbara, on whether you can see him as Gabriel, as a person in his own right, not just as a symbol of past mistakes or present atonement." She nodded slowly, watching as Gabriel lifted Lily onto his shoulders, the little girl's delighted giggles floating across the yard. "I'm trying," she said. "It's not easy, changing the thought patterns of a lifetime, seeing beyond the narrative I've maintained for so long." "No one said it would be easy," I agreed, "but it is necessary. For all of us, but especially for you." I closed the jewelry box, holding it out to her. I appreciate the gesture, Barbara, but I think you should keep this. Remember your grandmother's wisdom as you navigate this new chapter. Barbara hesitated, then gently pushed the box back toward me. No, I want you to have it. Not as some grand symbolic gesture or attempt to buy forgiveness, but as recognition. You're the heart of this family now, Emma. The one holding these fragile new connections together. The one who saw the truth when I was still clinging to illusions. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, announcing the first guests. Barbara squeezed my hand briefly. Just think about it, she said, then straightened her shoulders and moved toward the house, the perfect hostess mask slipping back into feet, place with practiced ease. The party progressed as first birthday parties typically do, with more excitement among the adults than the children, who were largely bewildered by the fuss. Lily, true to Noah's prediction, ended up with more cake, in her hair than her mouth, much to everyone's amusement. Barbara maintained a careful distance from Gabriel, while Thomas moved between them, a bridge still being tentatively constructed between past and present. As I watched Noah help Lily open her gifts, or rather, open them while she played with the wrapping paper, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. From finding that DNA test envelope to today's cautious family celebration, we had traversed a landscape of pain, revelation, and tentative healing that I could never have anticipated. The Mitchell family that existed now was nothing like the one I'd married into. The facade of perfection had cracked, revealing the messy, complicated truth beneath. Yet paradoxically, in that messiness lay a kind of authenticity that the previous version had never achieved. Thomas laughed more freely. These days, Noah moved through the world with a new confidence, no longer trying to live up to impossible family standards. Barbara. Barbara was still finding her way, still struggling to reconcile who she had been with, who she might yet become. And Gabriel, the catalyst for so much change, the son denied his birthright for 35 years, he had somehow found his place among us, neither demanding nor submissive, but present and engaged, connecting with the father he'd always wondered about while maintaining a respectful distance from the woman who had kept them apart. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, I found myself standing beside Gabriel at the dessert table, watching Barbara help Thomas clean up discarded wrapping paper. "How are you doing?" I asked quietly. "Really?" Gabriel considered. The question, his gaze thoughtful. Better than I expected, honestly. 6 months ago, I'd given up hope of ever having a relationship with Thomas. Now we talk almost daily, have dinner weekly. He's meeting my girlfriend next weekend. He smiled slightly. It's not what I imagined as a kid, not the fantasy I built. In my head about what would happen if my father acknowledged me. It's more complex, more real. And with Barbara? His expression tightened slightly. That's evolving. I don't know if we'll ever have anything resembling a normal relationship. Too much history, too much hurt. But I'm trying to see her as Thomas does. As a flawed person who made terrible choices but who also raised my brother to be the man he is. He glanced at Noah, who was currently pretending a stuffed elephant was chasing Lily across the grass. And that counts for something. I followed his gaze, warmth spreading through my chest at the sight of my husband and daughter. It does. Noah wouldn't be who he is without both of them, the good and the bad parts of his upbringing. She gave me something today, Gabriel said unexpectedly. Barbara, before you all came outside, a watch that apparently belonged to Thomas's father, said it should have been mine years ago. He touched his wrist, where I now noticed an antique timepiece I hadn't seen before. I'm not sure what to make of it. What did you say? Thank you. What else could I say? He shrugged, a gesture so reminiscent of Noah it made my heart ache. I don't know if it's a genuine attempt at connection or another performance for the family's benefit. I'm still learning to read her. I think we all are, I admitted, Even Thomas after 30 years of marriage. As the afternoon faded into evening and the last guests departed, our unusual family unit remained. Thomas and Barbara, Noah and me, Gabriel and Lily, connected by blood and choice, by painful history and cautious hope for the future. We gathered around the patio table as the sun set, sharing stories and leftover cake, the conversation flowing, more easily than it had in months. "I have something I'd like to say," Thomas announced suddenly, setting down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "Something important." We all turned to him expectantly, the mood shifting with his serious tone. "Barbara and I have been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talking these past few months," he began, reaching for his wife's hand, which she gave after a moment's hesitation. "About the past, about the future, about what kind of family we want to be moving forward." Noah tensed beside me, clearly uncertain where this was heading. I placed a steadying hand on his knee under the table. "We've decided to make some changes," Thomas continued. "Starting with the house. We're selling it." This announcement was met with stunned silence. The Mitchell family home had been a cornerstone of Oakwood society for decades, the site of countless charity events, holiday gatherings, and carefully orchestrated family performances. "Selling it?" Noah repeated incredulously. "But it's been in the family for 3 generations, yes," Thomas acknowledged. "And every brick of it is saturated with the kind of family legacy that led to our current situation. The expectations, the pressure to maintain appearances, the secrets kept to preserve the Mitchell name." He glanced at Gabriel. "We want a fresh start, somewhere without all those memories, those ghosts." "Where will you go?" I asked, noting Barbara's uncharacteristic silence during this announcement. "We've found a place in Riverside," Thomas replied, the significance of the location not lost on any of us. Riverside, where Eleanor had raised Gabriel, where Thomas's other life had unfolded without his knowledge. "It's smaller," Barbara added, speaking for the first time. "More manageable. Closer to where Gabriel teaches." She met his surprised gaze briefly before looking away. "We thought it might be convenient for family gatherings." The implications of this move, its symbolic weight, its practical purpose of bridging the geographical distance between the fractured branches of the Mitchell family, hung in the air between us. "What about the business?" Noah asked. "Mitchell, construction has always been run from Oakwood." "That's the other change," Thomas said, his expression resolute. "I'm stepping back, not retiring completely, but reducing my role significantly." He turned to Noah. "If you're still interested in taking over more responsibility, the timing seems right." Noah and I exchanged glances, having discussed this possibility extensively over recent months. Noah had been considering a gradual transition from his father's shadow, implementing his own vision for the company while honoring its foundations. "I am interested," he confirmed. "But what about—" His gaze flickered to Gabriel. "I've already told Thomas I have no desire to enter the family business," Gabriel said, correctly interpreting Noah's unspoken concern. "My life is teaching. Music. That hasn't changed." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I've seen enough of the Mitchell family dynamics to know better than to complicate them with business entanglements." Thomas nodded, respecting this boundary. "There is one more thing," he added, his tone softening. "Something Barbara and I have discussed at length with our lawyers." He reached into his jacket pocket, extracting an envelope. "Gabriel, this doesn't change the past, doesn't make up for 35 years of absence, but it is, we hope, a step toward acknowledgement." Gabriel accepted the envelope with visible caution. "What is this?" "Legal documentation," Thomas explained. "Formally acknowledging you as my son, adjusting the family trust to include you equally with Noah. establishing your right to the Mitchell name should you choose to take it. The magnitude of this gesture, its public, legal, irrevocable nature, seemed to catch Gabriel off guard. "I don't need your money," he said carefully. "I have a good life, a career I love." "It's not about need," Thomas countered gently. "It's about right, about recognition, about ensuring that from this moment forward, there is no difference in how the world sees you and Noah as my sons." Barbara's face remained carefully composed, though I detected a slight trembling in her clasped hands. This step, this formal, public acknowledgement of the son she had spent decades hiding, represented perhaps the most significant surrender of her carefully constructed family narrative. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," she said quietly, surprising us all with her interjection. "About the name, about any of it, the acknowledgement is unconditional." Gabriel studied her face, searching for the manipulation, the hidden agenda that had characterized their limited interactions thus far. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "Thank you, both of you. I'll need some time to process this." "Of course," Thomas agreed readily. "All the time you need." As darkness fell completely, we moved inside, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. Lily's upcoming transition to a toddler bed, Gabriel's school concert preparations, Rachel's recent promotion. Yet beneath the ordinary family discussion ran an undercurrent of significance, of boundaries redrawn and connections reformed. When Gabriel prepared to leave around 9, Thomas walked him to the door, their conversation low and private. Barbara hesitated, then followed, hovering uncertainly at the periphery of their farewell. I watched from the living room as Gabriel extended his hand to Thomas, who ignored it in favor of a brief but heartfelt embrace. Then, in a moment of unexpected grace, Gabriel turned to Barbara and offered his hand to her as well. She took it, tentatively, the physical contact between them rare and meaningful. No embrace, no pretense of comfort that hadn't been earned, but a handshake, formal, respectful, acknowledging both the distance that remained and the small steps taken to bridge it. After Gabriel departed and Thomas and Barbara retired upstairs, Noah and I gathered a sleeping Lily and her mountain of new possessions to head home. As we loaded the car in companionable silence, I found myself turning Barbara's bracelet over, in my fingers, still unsure whether to accept the complex legacy it represented. "You're quiet," Noah observed, as we drove through the darkened Oakwood streets. "Overwhelmed by today?" "Processing," I corrected. "It was a lot. Your parents selling the house, moving to Riverside, the legal recognition for Gabriel." "I never thought I'd see my mother accept any of this," Noah admitted. "The house especially. It's been her showcase, her status symbol for decades." "People can surprise you," I said, thinking of Barbara's unexpected vulnerability earlier, her silent support of Thomas's decisions. Even after 30 years of knowing them. Noah reached across the console, taking my hand in his. "Are we okay? With all of this? The changes, the new family dynamics, the complicated history we'll eventually have to explain to Lily?" I squeezed, his fingers remembering the frightened, angry man who had stood in our kitchen a year ago, holding a DNA test envelope that had shattered his understanding of his family. "We're more than okay," I assured him. "We're stronger for having faced the truth, however painful it was initially. Lily will grow up knowing her full family story, understanding that people can make mistakes, can hurt each other deeply, and still find ways to heal, to reconnect, to begin again." As we turned onto our street, I slipped Barbara's bracelet onto my wrist, feeling its weight, the physical embodiment of a family legacy being rewritten, reimagined, reclaimed in truth, rather than appearance. The silver caught the moonlight streaming through the car window, the intricate pattern of connected circles seeming to symbolize our unusual family, damaged but healing, separate but linked. each connection imperfect but genuine in ways Barbara's carefully curated family image had never been. Truth is messier than fiction, Noah observed, watching me adjust the bracelet. But I'll take it over the alternative any day. So will I agreed, glancing back at our sleeping daughter, peaceful and untroubled in her car seat. So will I. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.